After Shin Shurian was promoted to head of the supply and sales department at the textile mill, he brought a woman home. He said Zhou Qingyi had suffered a mental trauma from saving him, and her condition would flare up from time to time. He felt he owed her a debt of gratitude, and just like that, Zhou Qingyi moved into the family quarters. The first time she had an episode, she tore up my marriage certificate with Shin Shurian. The second time she had an episode, she burned the only keepsake my grandfather left me. The third time, she spilled oil on the floor, causing me to slip and lose the baby. Shin Shurian told me to be the bigger person and not hold it against someone who's sick. Later, when I married the young factory director who never asked me to be the bigger person, how did he beg and plead for me to stay? My eyes fell upon the mottled, aged white walls, and the air was thick with the bitter scent of medicine. A sharp pain radiated from below. I pressed a hand to my lower abdomen, but the familiar fluttering of life was gone. Tears instantly blurred my vision. Wei, we'll have another child, Shin Shurian whispered, holding me as if I were the most precious treasure in the world. His voice trembled slightly, thick with grief, as scalding tears fell ceaselessly onto the nape of my neck, covering my face. Tears streamed down like broken strings of pearls as I screamed in utter despair. It was Zhou Qingyi. She's the one who killed our child. I was over 6 months pregnant. After drinking some water in the living room, I turned around, stepped on a patch of cooking oil, and fell before I could even react. As I fell, I saw with my own eyes Zhou Qingyi frantically toss the cooking oil bottle into a corner. Wei, I know you're upset, but don't just throw accusations at Qingyi. She sprained her ankle trying to save you. I looked up in disbelief. Shin Shurian didn't believe me. He was instinctively defending Zhou Qingyi. Wei, even if you are my wife, I will not allow you to slander Qingyi like this. She once risked her life to save me. I closed my eyes in disappointment. There are security cameras installed in the house. If you don't believe me, go check the footage. Ever since Shin Shurian brought Zhou Qingyi back, I've been feeling deeply uneasy. I spent 2 months' salary to have someone in the capital buy a surveillance camera for me, which I secretly installed in the living room. What do you take Qingyi and me for? Installing surveillance in our own home? Shin Shurian's face instantly darkened as he snapped coldly. Last week when Qingyi had her episode, I asked you for money and you said you had none. Was it because you spent it all on this surveillance system? I was utterly disillusioned. That's not the point right now. I don't have the energy to argue with you. Protecting her is useless. She can wait for the police to come for her. Zhou Qingyi rushed into the hospital room, sobbing uncontrollably, and dropped to her knees before me with a thud. Wei, I'm so sorry. I couldn't save the baby. It's all my fault. She began kowtowing heavily. After just a few times, her forehead was already bruised. Shin Shurian pulled her up in one swift motion and held her in his arms, his heart aching for her. It wasn't your fault. Why are you apologizing to her? If you hadn't been kind enough to call for help, her body would be cold by now. His eyes flickered as he demanded of me. You knew Qingyi was sick, so why weren't you more careful? You're the one who caused the child's death. Don't you know how hard it was for us to conceive? I smiled bitterly, my hand resting on my flat stomach. Do you think I don't know? Shin Shurian has low sperm count. We only conceived the child through IVF. IVF technology was only recently introduced in our country and wasn't very advanced. We went through 8 grueling rounds before I finally managed to get pregnant. Those thick, long needles, every single time, they went right into me. Shin Shurian asked me if I had any idea how hard it was to have a child. I was so furious I couldn't get a word out. Seeing that I stayed silent, Shin Shurian patted Zhou Qingyi's shoulder, had her sit on the stool, and then turned to lecture me. The child is gone. And you and Qingyi are both at fault. Qingyi once saved my life, so a life for a life. Let this matter end here. Stop dragging her into it. If you, as the mother, couldn't even protect your own child, what's the point in blaming others? Knock, knock, the restaurant owner called out. The food you ordered is here. Shin Shurian opened the door, took the food, and said to me gently, you must be hungry. Let's eat first. I got it from that restaurant you always go to, all your favorites. The disposable lunchbox was opened. Shin Shurian's hand stilled, and he set the lunchbox down in frustration. I found it a bit odd, and my gaze swept over. Chopped chili fish head, spicy diced chicken, numbing and spicy lotus root slices, and a cold vegetable salad. 4 dishes, all spicy and pungent, or cold and raw. Not a single one is something I can eat right now, yet he claimed he ordered them for me. It's obvious they were all ordered to suit Zhou Qingyi's taste. Every one is her favorite. I was so angry, a sharp pain throbbed in my chest. The restaurant owner's wife, an acquaintance of mine, frowned deeply when she heard about my miscarriage. She turned to Shin Shurian with a sharp tone and asked, Wei just had a miscarriage. How could you order these dishes? She can't eat any of this. Just then, a tall, slender man stepped into the hospital room. The ordinary, oversized patient gown looked on him as if it were a custom-made haute couture piece. He sauntered forward with his hands in his pockets, glanced at the table full of spicy dishes, tilted his chin up, and said in a deliberately provoking tone, well, the one in the hospital bed can't eat spicy food, but the one in the chair is practically drooling, so, which one is actually your wife? The restaurant owner nodded in agreement. I was wondering the same thing. His wife just had a miscarriage, and not a single dish he ordered is something she can eat. On top of that, he's making eyes at another woman right in the hospital room. What kind of behavior is that? Shin Shurian flushed bright red with shame and anger, pointing at me. He blurted out, Qing Wei told me to order these dishes. Jiang Huaiji tilted his head and drawled out a long, sarcastic right. She ordered a whole table of spicy food she can't even eat. I suppose when you're in the hospital someday, you'll be ordering spicy food too, won't you, by the end? His tone had shifted into pure, unadulterated mockery. Well, since you have someone to protect you now, I'll just get out of here. Wouldn't want to be in your way. Shin Shurian's face flushed with embarrassment. He grabbed Zhou Qingyi's hand and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I was abandoned at the hospital. My body ached so much I couldn't walk. And there was no one to look after me. I rummaged through my pockets and only found 20 cents. Right, I was in my pajamas when I came to the hospital. It's not like I'd have much cash stuffed in the pockets. Just as I was clutching those 20 cents, trying to figure out how to hire someone to fetch my change of clothes and money from home, a man in a suit strode into the ward and respectfully handed Jiang Huaiji a folder. Director, these are the documents for the new quarter. I froze on the spot, stealing several incredulous glances at Jiang Huaiji, the factory manager. He's so young to already be in that position. Which factory does he manage? I'm fairly familiar with all the factories in the neighboring city. How come I've never heard of him? Lost in my bewilderment, I snapped back to reality only to find Jiang Huaiji had already packed his things and was ready to be discharged from the hospital. Here, I've left that orderly for you. I paid for an extra month. My eyes grew a little misty. Who would hire a private nurse for that long? As we left the hospital room, Jiang Huaiji casually tossed a small flower my way. A grown man like me holding this, it's hardly the most masculine look. It was a flower folded from 250 yuan bills. I had seen Jiang Huaiji make it himself earlier. In my current condition, I desperately need a caregiver and money. Jiang Huaiji gave both to me, as if it were nothing. After Jiang Huaiji left, I sat on the hospital bed clutching that little flower. A lump rose in my throat, and tears began to fall despite my best efforts. Remembering the nurse's warning that crying now could cause complications, I sniffled and tilted my head back, fighting to hold the tears in. I don't understand why this is happening. Just a month ago, Shin Shurian and I were still known throughout the textile mill as the picture-perfect, loving couple. Ever since Zhou Qingyi arrived, conflicts between us have become frequent. On the rare occasion we were laughing and joking around, he said with a cheeky grin that I was being petty and couldn't tolerate Zhou Qingyi. But the problem clearly lies with Zhou Qingyi. I was abandoned as a child and lived a life of wandering, so my health has always been fragile. After I got pregnant, the doctor advised me to build up my strength with extra nourishment. I had just brought the tonics and fruit home when Zhou Qingyi started devouring them like a meal. She couldn't even finish it all and started hiding the leftovers in her room. The moment I brought it up, she just cried and refused to speak. Then Shin Shurian accused me of looking down on his lifesaver. After that incident, knowing Shin Shurian would back her up, Zhou Qingyi's behavior became increasingly outrageous. Whatever I had, she wanted it too. One day, when I came back from a walk, she was actually wearing my pajamas, twirling in front of Shin Shurian and asking him if she looked good. Shin Shurian said she did. She kept pressing, asking if she was prettier than me. She wasn't satisfied until she heard Shin Shurian say that I wasn't as pretty as a single one of her toes. After I walked in, I told her not to wear my intimate clothing anymore. She's having another episode. She threw herself into Shin Shurian's arms, her soft curves pressing tightly against his chest as she trembled uncontrollably, refusing to let go. Shin Shurian's face darkened as he accused, "Why did you provoke Qingyi? She's unwell." After his rebuke, he carried Zhou Qingyi into the room. Once he had soothed her to sleep, he came out and solemnly warned me that Zhou Qingyi was his savior. He could let down anyone in this world, but he absolutely could not fail her. He said he didn't want to be an ungrateful wretch who forgot a kindness. He insisted he only saw Zhou Qingyi as his lifesaver, promised I was his one and only wife, and vowed to send her away as soon as she recovered. Back then, he held me in his arms and spoke those words with such sincerity, every syllable deliberate. I believed him. How could I have been so foolish to believe it? 1 month later, Once I had recovered, I was discharged from the hospital, back at the family compound. Just as I was about to enter, I heard my mother-in-law's voice, "Where's Wei Wei? Have you been looking after her properly? She's carrying your child, so you'd better not mistreat her, or you'll have me to answer to." My eyes welled up with tears. When I married Shin Shiryan, my mother-in-law said she would treat me like her own daughter. All these years, whenever she was around, I never had to wash a single dish, cook a single meal, or sweep the floor once. "The baby is gone, she's at the hospital," Shin Shiryan said, keeping it brief. My mother-in-law was so anxious she was pacing back and forth at home. "What on earth is this? How could you?" "Oh, for goodness sake." I was just about to push the door open and go in to comfort my mother-in-law, but then I saw her stop in her tracks and stand before Shin Shiryan. "Why don't you just divorce Qing Wei and marry Qingyi instead? Qing Wei's health has always been poor. She finally succeeded with IVF this time, only to have a miscarriage. IVF is expensive. For years, all your salary has been poured into Qing Wei, and you haven't saved a penny. What's more, even if the next round of IVF works, the child's health probably won't be much better. My grandson can't be sickly and weak. Why not marry Qingyi instead? She may have occasional episodes, but she's as strong as an ox. Besides, didn't you just get promoted to head of the supply and sales department? Why keep coddling Qing Wei? She's useless now." Li Qing went on and on. I stood frozen outside the door, my hands and feet turning cold. "So, Shin Shiryan never married me for love. It was all because of my grandfather. My grandfather used to be the deputy director of the textile mill. After Shin Shiryan married me, my grandfather pulled some strings to get him a job at the mill. 6 months ago, my grandfather retired due to illness. He had worked at the textile mill for decades and had cultivated a wide network of connections. Worried I would struggle after he was gone, he wanted to pave the way for me and help me become the head of the supply and sales department. The department head is responsible for factory procurement, product distribution, and similar duties, a position known for its considerable perks. Once you're in that job, as long as you don't commit a crime, having your basic needs met for the rest of your life is the lowest form of existence. But just as I was about to start the internship, I found out I was pregnant, left with no choice. Grandpa had to switch the candidate to Shin Shiryan. His time is running out, and the factory would never agree to let a pregnant woman take on such a crucial role. Grandfather's foresight was uncanny. Everything unfolded exactly as he had predicted. Last month, grandfather's health finally gave out. He called in favors and pulled strings behind the scenes, which is why Shin Shiryan was able to secure the position of supply and sales department chief this month. The flames of rage consumed my reason. Both my grandfather and I have been set up. Shin Shiryan fell silent for a moment after hearing Li Qing's suggestion. After a pause, he rejected it. "No." Li Qing stamped her foot in frustration. "Why not? If you're too embarrassed to say it, I'll talk to Qing Wei myself." I refused to believe she'd have the nerve to keep imposing on our family. "Mom, that's not the issue." Zhou Qingyi, in the midst of an episode, ran out of her room and gleefully threw her arms around Shin Shiryan. "Have a baby, let's have a baby." Li Qing's face lit up with delight. "Then what is the problem? See how eager Qingyi is to have your child." Shin Shiryan rubbed his temples. "I'm worried Qingyi's body can't handle so many rounds of IVF. Qing Wei was in decent health before the treatments, and look how much it's taken out of her. I don't want Qingyi to suffer like that." "Mom, I know you want a grandson. Let Qing Wei recover her strength a bit more, and we can try IVF again. I promise you'll have your grandson this year." Li Qing muttered discontentedly. "Qing Wei's constitution is so weak. What if she gets pregnant and miscarries again? A little stumble last time cost me my grandson. I don't have that kind of money to keep throwing at her treatments." Shin Shiryan's eyes darkened. "Her miscarriage? It wasn't because she fell." Li Qing sneered. "Then what was it? Did she do something shameful and deliberately get rid of my grandson?" Cursing under her breath, she started to go and settle the score with me. "It wasn't her fault." Shin Shiryan stopped her, seeming to struggle with the words. "Yes." Seeing Shin Shiryan hesitate, Li Qing narrowed her eyes and said, "Are you making excuses again to protect that little hussy, Qing Wei?" Shin Shiryan grabbed her arm and said with a bitter tone, "It was me. I didn't want the child, so I gave her the medicine." Zhou Qingyi's condition is still unstable. He was worried the child's birth would upset her. After all, every time he had taken Zhou Qingyi out before, she had always loved children. He didn't dare to gamble on this. My heart turned to ashes. My hand, which had been braced against the door, slowly slid down. A hand swept across the clothes rack, sending it clattering to the floor with a loud crash. "Wei Wei, you're back. Are you feeling any better?" Li Qing pretended everything was fine, walking over quickly to tightly grasp my hand. Her eyelids lowered, and a few tears fell onto the back of my hand. "Clammy and disgusting. I only just found out today that you were in the hospital. You're so delicate, and now the baby's gone. Please don't blame yourself." Her eyes were filled with what looked like pity for me. She kept dabbing at her tears, saying over and over how sorry she was for me, but her underlying message was clear. She blamed me for not protecting the child, for losing her precious grandson. "You just sit tight, I'll go make you something nourishing to help you recover." With that, Li Qing bustled off into the kitchen. No sooner had I finished packing than Li Qing came into the room to pull me out for a meal. She had made pork and cabbage stew with glass noodles, a thick layer of lard shimmering on the surface. Li Qing piled food into my bowl and ladled in broth, urging me to eat. "You need to build up your strength," she insisted. "A healthy body is what you need to bear a son." I looked at the meat in Shinshurian's bowl, then at my own. Nothing but cabbage, glass noodles, and a thick layer of greasy broth. I didn't touch it. Li Qing cleared her throat awkwardly. "It's not that I don't want to give you meat. You're still weak after the miscarriage. Your body can't handle rich food right now. I'm only thinking of what's best for you." I'd had enough. I threw my chopsticks down on the table. "Is there something wrong with mom cooking for you? What's with the attitude?" Shinshurian's voice was ice cold. "All the meat is in your bowl. Anyone would think you're the one who had the miscarriage and needs to recover." Shinshurian finally noticed there wasn't a single piece of meat in my bowl. He took a deep breath. "There's plenty of meat in the pot. Can't you serve yourself? Do you need mom to wait on you like a servant? Is it that I won't serve myself?" Every time I reached my chopsticks into the pot, Li Qing was right behind me. If she saw me picking up a piece of meat, she'd snatch it right out of my grasp. "Forget it, this meal isn't worth the trouble." I went back to my room, grabbed my packed luggage, and got ready to leave. Li Qing grabbed my arm to stop me. Wei Wei, as your mother, I have to say this. Shurian is your husband, and more importantly, the section chief at the textile mill. How could you embarrass him like this? Running off after one little argument. Do you want everyone to laugh at the section chief? Speaking of Shurian's promotion to department head, she puffed out her chest with pride. "It's just that Shurian has a kind heart. Even after becoming the head, he didn't think of abandoning you. Don't you know how he got that position?" I sneered with a cold laugh. "He climbed to the top by sucking the lifeblood out of me and my grandfather." Does Shinshurian really think he got there on his own merit? Unable to bear my scornful gaze, Shinshurian roared, "Mom, let her go. I'd like to see just where she thinks she can run off to." The moment I stepped out, the door slammed shut behind me with a violent kick, lugging my suitcase towards the guest house. Head down and cursing my own poor judgment, I suddenly walked right into a solid wall of a person. It was Jiang Huaiji. He caught my luggage just before it hit the ground, heard my stomach growl, and with a grand gesture, offered to buy me a meal. Then he pulled me along toward the state-run restaurant. At the table, he asked casually, "Why did you sneak out of the hospital?" "I went to your ward looking for you, but the room was empty." Thinking he'd come to collect the money I owed him, I quickly dug the cash out of my bag. "Thank you, here you go." His face darkened. He clicked his tongue, refused the money, and instead, looking at my luggage, asked pointedly, "Did they kick you out?" There was a note of concern and irritation in the voice. I hung my head and cried, feeling utterly pathetic. I'm such a failure, completely fooled by the person I shared my bed with. Once we had eaten and drunk our fill, Jiang Huaiji picked up my luggage and made to leave. He just said he was taking me somewhere I could stay comfortably. As if in a trance, I followed him, and the path grew more and more familiar. He took me to his house. He turned out to be Grandpa Jiang's grandson. Grandpa Jiang and my grandpa had been close friends for many years. I used to come with my grandpa to the Jiang family's house for New Year's visits, but I had never met Jiang Huaiji. "Grandpa Jiang." I called out his name, too ashamed to look him in the eye. I had previously asked Grandpa Jiang for help several times, all for Shinshurian's sake. Well, when Grandpa Jiang heard about my recent troubles, he was furious. "Your grandfather is gone," he declared, "so I'll stand up for you in his place. Just settle in here for the next few days. If you need anything, go to Huaiji." And so, I began my stay at the Jiang residence. Jiang Huaiji had returned from the capital without enough clothes for his stay, needing to shop for more. He called on me to go with him and help haggle for a better price. Bargain. Does the factory director haggle over clothes too? But I didn't dare ask. As soon as I entered the clothing store, I saw Shinshurian trying on a black suit. Qingyi Zhou adjusted his clothes with tender care, her hands slipping suggestively around his waist, bringing them so close they seemed to be embracing. "Qingyi, this suit is far too expensive. Let's look at something else." Qingyi Zhou shook her head. "After trying them all, this one suits you best. You're about to become the head of the supply and sales department at the textile mill. You'll be out making deals and purchasing goods all the time. You can't go out looking anything less than your best. Don't worry, I have the money for it." Qingyi Zhou took something from inside her coat and said, "We can just pawn this. This shop does a double trade, selling clothes, and running a pawn business. Boss, how much do you think this watch is worth?" Zhou Qingyi's tone was brimming with confidence, as if the watch was more than enough to pay for the garment. Before she could even hand the watch over the counter, an elderly man browsing the clothes suddenly asked if he could take a look at it. The elderly gentleman was dressed in a mouse suit and wore an expensive-looking bracelet, clearly a man of considerable means. "Of course, please, take your time and have a look." At that moment, I finally got a clear look at the watch Zhou Qingyi had produced. It was my grandfather's heirloom, this Plum Blossom brand lady's watch, which Grandpa bought for 500 yuan many years ago, was meant to be a gift for Grandma. Grandpa and Grandma were deeply in love in their youth, but they were tragically separated during the war. Grandpa searched for Grandma for many years, traveling to numerous cities himself and placing many missing person notices, but he never found a single trace of her. When he bought this watch, Grandpa said that Grandma loved delicate watches and adored plum blossoms, so she was sure to love this brand. This watch stayed by Grandpa's side, just like Grandma used to, offering him so much comfort and strength. I distinctly remember placing the watch in the coffin with Grandpa when he was buried. How on earth did it get here? I was there the entire vigil, except for a quick trip to the restroom. I shot a furious glare at Shin Shiyan. It had to be him. He took the watch out of the coffin. "This watch suits you, and it's a fine piece, you should wear it." Shin Shiyan patted Zhou Qingyi's hand. "Even without a suit, no one would dare look down on me." As they gazed into each other's eyes while feigning reluctance, I seized the moment and darted forward to snatch the watch. Wei, why are you pushing Qingyi? If she gets hurt, do you think you can take responsibility?" Shin Shiyan carefully shielded Zhou Qingyi behind him. "Shin Shiyan, how dare you even ask?" I held up the watch. "This is my grandfather's watch, the one he was going to give to my grandmother." Shin Shiyan raised his voice in a furious shout. "The dead are gone, extinguished like a lamp. How can a dead person's belongings be more important than a living one? What's more, Qingyi did this for my sake. Even she, just a friend, shows such consideration for me. And you, have you forgotten how my grandfather nurtured you? If you hadn't married me, could you have ever gotten into the textile mill? If grandfather hadn't entrusted me to you, could you have been promoted to head of the supply and sales department? And how did you repay him? By stealing the watch he meant to give to Grandma right in the morning hall, and by causing me to miscarry." I was shouting very loudly, and the crowd of onlookers kept growing. Shin Shiyan, having been hit where it hurts, yelled at me to stop making a scene and asked if I had no shame. Jiang Huaiji let out a provoking, mocking click of his tongue. "You ungrateful leech, living off others and bleeding them dry, yet you can't even do your part. If you feel no shame, why should Qing Wei?" Seeing it was Jiang Huaiji again, Shin Shiyan snapped, pointing at Jiang Huaiji. "He started hurling insults at me, so you jumped into his bed during that month in the hospital. No wonder you haven't been home these days. You found yourself a new man and are having such a good time out there that you can't even bother coming back. Whether my relationship with Jiang Huaiji is proper or not isn't for you to decide, but your scandal with Zhou Qingyi is known to everyone in the residential compound." I sneered. "You want to be the head of the supply and sales department, in your dreams." Shin Shiyan's face instantly darkened with a thunderous expression. Zhou Qingyi pulled the same old trick again, kneeling on the ground and tugging at my pant leg, pleading, "Sister Wei, please don't make a scene, and don't say such things. It's all my fault. Please don't be angry with Brother Shiyan anymore." Shin Shiyan, heart aching for Zhou Qingyi, launched into a vicious tirade against me. "Marrying you was the worst misfortune for my family. You're making up lies to slander me right here. No wonder your own parents abandoned you at birth. After your grandfather took you in, your grandmother went missing. You've been lonely and miserable your whole life, and you won't even find peace after death." A dull ache shot through my heart, and I stumbled. Jiang Huaiji steadied me, a sarcastic smirk curling his lips. "Qing Wei is clearly the one who's been jinxed by you. Your family is a nest of bad luck. Otherwise, why did your father run off, abandoning you and your mother? Why did you have to fight stray dogs for scraps as a child? And why can you only live off others as an adult?" Shin Shiyan, you've been looking forward to this job for ages, haven't you? I'm going to report you right now. Let's see if you can still land that position as head of the supply and sales department. I turned to leave. Shin Shiyan grabbed me tightly, begging me not to make a scene. Jiang Huaiji slapped his hand away. Shin Shiyan's arm was flushed red. Jiang Huaiji raised an eyebrow. "Wow, that weak." Shin Shiyan was hopping mad. "Qing Wei, what are you playing at? What good does it do you if I don't become section chief? After all these years of marriage, how can you be so heartless?" I ignored him, and he completely lost it, hurling insults. "You want your little fling to take my place, don't you? I never knew you were so desperate. You must have been selling yourself before we married, too. How else could your crazy old man of a father have become deputy factory director? If I'd known you were so shameless, I would have come to you with all my problems. I might even be the deputy director by now. You're like a dead fish in bed. I can't imagine who'd be into that. Shinshurian's words grew more and more explicit, even detailing the number of moles on my chest and describing the feel of my backside. The people around me were looking at me with strange, judgmental stares. I was trembling with rage. Jiang Huaiji produced a bamboo slat from somewhere and viciously slapped Shinshurian across the mouth. Isn't it you who's always selling your body for profit? Otherwise, how would a poor wretch like you even know the intimate details of other people's bodies? He sighed and spread his hands helplessly. I know you're not well endowed, always needing medicine to perform. Isn't that why your whole salary goes to treatment? How else have you been living off your wife's money all these years? Shinshurian flew into a rage. This is between me and my wife. It's none of your damn business. Who asked you to stick your nose in? What the hell are you spouting? Of course I have proof. I know all those doctors you frequent. I'm not like you, just slinging baseless accusations without a shred of evidence. Jiang Huaiji made a very convincing argument. If I didn't know he had just returned from the capital, seeing his confident expression, I would have believed him. It's because of your inadequacy that Qing Wei had to run to the hospital every day, suffering so much. She finally got pregnant, only to have it ruined by that scheming woman behind your back. Is this your way of ensuring you have no heirs? I never knew you had such peculiar tastes. Before we knew it, the clock struck 5 in the afternoon, and Shinshurian visibly relaxed. Come on, Qingyi, let's go. Arguing with a dog is pointless. He was no match for Jiang Huaiji in an argument. Besides, the more they talked about that matter, the worse it would look. There was no point in continuing the fight, or he'd be the one to lose out. Today was the final day of the public notice period. When Qing Wei threatened to report him, there were only 20 minutes left until the textile mill closed for the day. The workday is over now. If Qing Wei and Jiang Huaiji think they can report him and stop him from getting the job, they're dreaming. The position of supply and sales department manager is his, and his alone. Jiang Huaiji, however, refused to give him the satisfaction. Don't go. You don't actually think that by stalling this long, you've left us with no options, do you? I laughed too. Shinshurian had a sinking feeling. He asked darkly, what are you implying? Jiang Huaiji shrugged. I'm not implying anything. Now get lost. I don't want to talk to a dog either. Shinshurian was so furious he was grinding his teeth, his eyes blazing with rage. The next day, at the textile mill's morning meeting, the director announced in front of all the staff that the position of supply and sales department manager would be reopened for applications. Shinshurian had made a point of wearing his brand new suit to work today. The employees' mocking and disdainful glances kept landing on him, turning into audible sneers the moment they noticed his brand new suit. Shinshurian's face turned pale, then purple, shifting like a Sichuan opera face changer. A truly spectacular display. Qing Wei, you set me up. He glared at me with venom in his eyes. Since Qing Wei cost him the position of supply and sales department chief, he would make her compensate with an even better job. That old bastard from the Qing family has a lot of connections, doesn't he? He refused to believe that with Qing Wei in his grasp, those people wouldn't help him. Qing Wei, just you wait, you'll regret this. At 5 in the afternoon, the textile factory let out for the day. To prevent Shinshurian from doing something desperate, I waited at the entrance of the textile mill for Jiang Huaiji to pick me up. I never imagined Shinshurian would dare to kidnap me right at the mill's entrance. A sharp pain shot through my back, and then everything went black. When I opened my eyes and looked around, Shinshurian was sitting to my right, head bowed in despair, tugging painfully at his hair. Seeing I was awake, he suddenly grabbed my hair and demanded urgently, what trick did you pull? Yesterday was the final day of the public notice period, and I managed to stall you all until after work. Besides, investigating a report takes time. Why was the director so decisive this morning in announcing I was unqualified for the supply and sales department head position, and even kicked me out of the factory? Up until then, he had been closely monitoring the office. No one had reported him at all. He had even laughed at another colleague who got reported, mocking their bad luck. Jiang Huaiji, Jiang, a realization seemed to dawn on you. Is he Jiang whose grandson? He suddenly let go, his smile uglier than a grimace. No wonder he helped you so much. No wonder he managed to evade my surveillance and report me. Shinshurian kicked me hard in the stomach. The searing pain consumed all my focus, and beads of cold sweat streamed down my forehead. It had only been just over a month since the miscarriage. My body hadn't fully recovered, and the pain was so intense I felt like I was dying. Before I came to the textile mill, your grandfather was in perfect health. Yet, less than a year after my arrival, he was dead. Care to guess why? Shinshirian's smile was as sinister as a demon from the underworld. That damned old man watches me every single day, making me wait on you at home like some housewife. The moment you wash a dish or a piece of clothing, he gets all heartbroken and orders me to do it instead. Tell me, why should I? Isn't all that supposed to be your job as the woman? If it weren't for that, given his high salary and extensive connections, I would never have brought myself to poison him. Every month, Shinshirian would buy new tea leaves, soak them in poisoned water, let them dry, and then gift them to his grandfather, telling him the tea was a present from me. My grandfather adored me. Every time I gave him tea, he would accept it with joy, never once suspecting a thing. Even when he felt unwell, he never suspected the tea was to blame. The day before he passed, he was still drinking the poisoned tea, patting my head. He said with emotion how happy he was to have such a devoted granddaughter. The memory is like a sharp knife, plunging deep into my heart. The pain is so intense it nearly steals my breath away. I had my suspicions all along. Grandpa had always been so robust, how could he suddenly fall ill? He even tried to comfort me, saying it was just a normal part of getting older. Now, the truth has finally come to light. Tears streamed down my face. Seeing me in such a pitiful state, Shinshirian burst into uncontrollable laughter. In the dead of night, after Shinshirian fell asleep, I contorted my hand and felt for the small knife hidden in my sock. When my grandfather was alive, he was always worried about me walking alone at night. To ease his mind, I developed the habit of keeping a knife in my sock. A lump formed in my throat, and tears streamed down my cheeks into my mouth, tasting bitter and acrid. Grandpa saved me once again. The knife was small, the blade thin, my hand strained in an awkward position, trying to cut through the ropes that bound me. My hands ached. I was exhausted. It hurts, but the rope is still tight. My wrists are raw and bleeding, but I still can't break free. A terrifying laugh suddenly sounded in my ear. Need some help? It's Shinshirian. He's actually awake. My mind went blank, my breath caught, and I turned my head in disbelief. Why did Shinshirian have to wake up right now? What's he going to do to me? He grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the wall, slapped me, kicked me in the stomach. I'm sorry, Shiryan, once we're out of here, I'll go to Grandpa Jiang and get you a better position, I begged him, looking up. You know how much I love you. I only messed up this time because Zhou Qingyi drove me crazy. What right does she have to try and take you from me? I was multitasking, trying to stall Shinshirian while desperately struggling to free myself from the ropes. Shinshirian pinched my chin. Do you really think I'd believe you again? With tears blurring my vision, I threw myself against him, my voice laced with the gentle, dependent tone he once loved. I was just jealous. All those IVF cycles, I went through them for you, without a single complaint, because I loved you. Do you think Zhou Qingyi would have done the same? The IVF process is incredibly painful. The first time, the pain was so intense I passed out. At that moment, I thought about giving up on having a child altogether. But Shinshirian and Li Qin were looking at me with such hopeful eyes. I couldn't bear to disappoint them. I tried to ignore the pain, to numb myself, all in the hope of having a child to make them happy. I thought it would make our home happier and warmer, but I was wrong. Shinshirian is a viper, a cold-blooded creature, my grandfather, and I gave so much for him, yet he felt we were looking down on him from our high horse. So the moment Zhou Qingyi appeared, he changed, because Zhou Qingyi was more humble and pitiful than him. Zhou Qingyi's dependence and admiration gave him an intoxicating thrill. Zhou Qingyi rushed in from outside and threw her arms tightly around Shinshirian. Shirian, don't listen to Qingwei's nonsense. I love you, more than she ever could. I want to have your child. She blinked her tear-filled, glistening eyes, gazing at Shinshirian with deep affection. She then turned to glare at me furiously. Qingwei, how can you be so vicious? You don't love Shirian yourself. And now you're dragging me into this. She crouched down, the cold blade of the fruit knife pressed against my cheek. Haven't you always been so proud of this face? Would you still go around causing trouble without it? Ha! The rope finally snapped. In a flash, I grabbed the wooden stick beside me and struck Zhou Qingyi's hand. The fruit knife clattered to the floor. I kicked the knife behind me, then raised the club and began laying into Shinshirian and Zhou Qingyi. Screams of pain rang out incessantly, but the good times didn't last. They saw right through my plan to fight my way to the door. Shinshirian grabbed a thicker club and swung it at my head. The club was right in my face. I squeezed my eyes shut in agony. It looks like I'll have to take this hit. 1 second, 2 seconds. The blow never came. I opened my eyes in confusion. It turned out that Shinshirian had already had the stick snatched away by Jiang Huaiji, who then pinned him to the ground and beat him savagely. He thrashed like a turtle held on its back, his arms, legs, and head flailing desperately, yet his body couldn't budge an inch from the spot. He spat at Jiang Huaiji. I stepped forward and ground my sole into the spit, the sole of my shoe pressed against his face. He glared at me with pure venom. Qingwei, how can you side with an outsider to bully Shiyan? Don't you feel any pity for him? Zhou Qingyi charged at me furiously. Trying to shove me aside and free Shiyan, I kicked her squarely in the shin. She crashed to the ground with a sickening thud, her agonized scream piercing the sky. Shiyan's eyes reddened with anguish. If you have a problem, take it up with me. What's the point of targeting Qingyi, a sick woman? As he wished, I slapped him hard across the face, twice. A sick woman, you know perfectly well if she's sick or not. He brought Zhou Qingyi home for no other reason than to disgust me and get back at me. When Grandpa was alive, he lived in misery, and he wanted me, the one Grandpa favored, to taste that same bitterness. If he'd had the guts to come clean to Grandpa and walk away from the textile mill when he was alive, or if he could have let go of the benefits he got from Grandpa and divorced me after he passed, then I'd have some respect for the man, but he's not. He's nothing but a coward. He's just a phoenix man who reaped huge benefits from his wife, yet relentlessly puts her down. Zhou Qingyi was never sick, and she never saved him. Otherwise, he would have brought that person home openly long ago. Why would he need to sneak around outside? He only dared to do it after his grandfather passed away and he was successfully promoted to head of the supply and sales department. When Zhou Qingyi had her episode, she tore up our marriage certificate, burned the notebook my grandfather left me, and even poured oil to cause my miscarriage. All of it was done with his permission. I put all my strength into those 2 slaps and actually knocked out 2 of Shiyan's teeth. No wonder the skin on my hand is broken and burning with pain. Shiyan spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva. Qingwei, you'd better kill me now if you have the guts. Otherwise, when I get the chance, I'll be the one ending you. Oh, really? I raised my foot and brought it down hard, accidentally stomping right on his family jewels. Arg. Just then, the police arrived. The moment they stepped inside, they heard Shiyan's wail. The young officer's expression even slipped from his control. When the older officer looked at me, I jumped back in a panic. My hands clapped over my ears. This is all your fault for scaring me. I was just trying to walk over there. Li Qin emerged from behind the police officer and shoved me aside with a vicious glare. You wicked woman, he's your husband. How could you be so brutal to him? He was far more brutal to me. I only gave them a little taste of their own medicine. Can't they handle that? Shiyan was rushed to the hospital, but the injuries were so severe that the thing was permanently out of commission. Upon hearing the news, Li Qin was so furious and shocked that she had a heart attack. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, requiring emergency resuscitation. It was a classic case of when it rains, it pours. In the hospital, Shiyan called the police the moment he woke up, accusing me of intentionally harming him and demanding they arrest me. But things didn't go as he planned. The court got to him before the police did and took him away, with Jiang Huaiji's help. The whole matter of Shiyan and Zhou Qingyi conspiring to poison Grandpa, one procuring the poison, the other lacing his tea, has been thoroughly investigated and proven. Li Qin came to see me. She lightly pounded her chest, struggling for breath. Wei, please let Shiyan go. A day as husband and wife means 100 days of grace. He did wrong, but his crime doesn't deserve death. Your grandfather is gone, the dead cannot return, but Shiyan is still a living person. You two still have a life to build together. I shoved her aside. Let him go. Why should I? He never showed any mercy to me or my grandfather. My grandfather lost his life to Shiyan's poison, and I was left battered and bruised by his cruelty. I spent 2 months' wages to have someone in the capital buy a surveillance camera for me, which I then discreetly installed in the living room. Qingwa, aren't you always so proud of Shiyan? Just wait and watch him go to prison. He'll never find a decent job again. Half a month later, the court hearing began. On the day of the hearing, there were 2 cases. One is the divorce case between me and Shiyan. The other is the case of Shiyan and Zhou Qingyi poisoning my grandfather. Both are proceeding smoothly. I have successfully divorced Shiyan. Shiyan and Zhou Qingyi were both sentenced. Shiyan, whose methods were vicious and whose crimes were heinous, was sentenced to death. Zhou Qingyi was sentenced to 3 years. Whether out of a twisted sense of injustice or genuine love for Zhou Qingyi, Shiyan, on the way back to prison, shockingly pulled her with him and jumped from a 10-meter-high platform. Zhou Qingyi died on the spot. Shiyan was still clinging to life, mustering the strength to utter a few words. All I could faintly make out was the word regret before he, too, drew his last breath. Upon hearing the news of Shiyan's death, Li Qin suffered another heart attack and was rushed to the emergency room. After being discharged from the ER, with no money for further treatment, she had no choice but to leave the hospital. In her ailing state, she came to me, begging for my help, but she was too late. I had already left Linshur with Jiang Huaiji, boarding the Greenskin train bound for the capital. Jiang Huaiji runs a large garment factory in the capital and is constantly busy. This trip back to Linshur was specifically to visit his grandfather. It was only because of an unexpected injury that he ended up staying in the hospital for over half a month longer. He should have gone back long ago. He was just waiting for me. The old green train chugged along slowly as Jiang Huaiji held my hand tightly. A faint smile touched the corners of my mouth. Thankfully, I'm moving forward too, not trapped by the abyss. Story 2. My husband was left in a vegetative state after a car accident, and his own mother would rather let him die than spend a penny to save him. Heartbroken for my husband, I was devastated. I borrowed money from every relative on my side of the family, exhausted all our savings, and even took out a high-interest loan to pay for his treatment, and finally managed to save his life. The first thing he did upon waking up was to demand a divorce, claiming that having cheated death once, he no longer wanted to live a lie and was going to pursue his true love. That's when I found out the truth. He had that accident while out buying a Valentine's Day gift to please his mistress. When I called my mother-in-law again, she said, "I don't have any money. He's your husband. If he dies, you'll be the widow. You can mourn him." Holding the phone to my ear, I told the doctor, "We're out of money. Pull the plug. We've made our decision. We're stopping treatment." Is this Yang Wei's family? This is Jiangyi Hospital. He's been in a serious car accident and is currently undergoing emergency treatment here. Please come to the hospital immediately. A family member needs to sign for the procedure. When I opened my eyes again, time had rewound to the very moment I received the hospital call on the day of my husband's accident. In my past life, when the hospital called, I rushed there without even tying my shoelaces. After 2 days of emergency care following the car accident, the doctors declared brain death. Continuing treatment would mean facing astronomical medical bills. The best possible outcome would be a persistent vegetative state, kept alive by machines while waiting for a miracle. In a situation like that, no one could stand by and watch their partner die right in front of them without lifting a finger to help. I didn't hesitate to choose to continue the life-saving treatment. And I used every last penny I had to pay for it, obviously. The little money I had was a drop in the bucket. Yang Wei is a mama's boy. The house we live in is under his mother's name, and he gives most of his monthly income to her. I begged his mother to use her money to save him. After all, there are countless cases of people waking up from a vegetative state. Money can't be more important than a person's life. I was completely blindsided when my mother-in-law said, "Where would an old woman like me get that kind of money? He's your husband, not mine. If you want to save him, you save him. I have no money to give. You can have my life if you want it." I never imagined she could say something so cruel. They say a parent's love is unconditional, but what's worse, Yang Wei is such a mama's boy who does everything she says. How could she be willing to let him die? I thought she was just saying it in the heat of the moment, true to her word. My mother-in-law washed her hands of the whole affair. She even pretended to be sick, staying home every day to stew pigeons and recuperate, refusing to even go to the hospital. My heart sank. I felt so indignant for Yang Wei. His own mother, the person he loved most, would rather see him die than loosen her grip on her money to save him. Back then, I had no idea he was keeping a mistress on the side, let alone that the car accident happened while he was out buying her a Qixi festival gift. So, seeing his mother care more about money than whether he lived or died, I was utterly heartbroken. I grieved for a long time, and then I poured every last penny I had into trying to save him. When the money ran out, I swallowed my pride and borrowed from my parents and all my relatives on my side of the family, even resorting to a high-interest loan. After all, when it comes to life and death, everything else is trivial. I'll borrow the money first. Once he wakes up, he can retrieve the money he left with his mother, and we'll work together to earn and repay whatever's still short. I believe that as long as we have our health, we can always find a way to earn the money back. Every day, I went to the hospital on time to bring him nutritious porridge, massaged his body as the doctor recommended, and kept him company with conversation, hoping he would wake up soon. Perseverance paid off. After 6 months of my care, Yang Wei miraculously regained consciousness. I was overjoyed, yet the first thing he did upon waking was to ask me for a divorce. I was utterly thunderstruck and completely stunned, thinking his mind must still be muddled from just waking up. Then he said that after his brush with death, he realized life is short. He no longer wanted to suppress his feelings or live a lukewarm, passionless life with me. He was determined to bravely pursue true love. I never imagined that my all-out effort to save him would be reduced to the lukewarm life he spoke of. I couldn't accept this sudden blow, but I still clung to hope, comforting myself that he was just recovering from a serious illness and his harsh words were due to a bad mood. But I never expected he would turn violent. It started with a slap, then escalated into endless domestic abuse. He even had the audacity to bring his mistress into our home. It finally dawned on me that he had been seeing his mistress for a long time. The car accident happened because his mistress was angry that he hadn't divorced me decisively. He was driving while trying to placate her and buy her a gift, got distracted, and crashed into a truck. Unable to bear the humiliation any longer, I agreed to the divorce. During the divorce, he promised to repay the money I had borrowed to cover his emergency medical expenses, but right after the divorce, he did a complete 180. He claimed the money was my loan. So of course I should be the one to pay it back. He even said he never asked me to bail him out, so why should he be on the hook for it? I took on all this debt and borrowed all this money without even consulting him. What gives him the right to make him pay for it? It wasn't until that moment that I realized he had rigged the divorce agreement. He took advantage of me being so emotionally wrecked and desperate to get away from him and his mistress that I forgot to scrutinize the fine print. He set the traps, and I walked right into them. I never imagined someone could stoop so low, especially when it's the wife who once saved his life. That massive debt, the one that saved his life, was dumped squarely on my shoulders, and Yang Wei is a total mama's boy. The house we lived in was under his mother's name, and the bulk of his salary went straight to her. When we divorced, I didn't get a single cent. There was no way I could come up with the money to pay off the debt I was saddled with. As soon as my relatives found out about my divorce, they immediately showed up at my door demanding money. Some of that money had been borrowed with my parents' help, and those relatives wouldn't leave my parents alone. Every day, a crowd of people would come to our house making a scene, demanding repayment. My mother has a heart condition and was so upset by it all that she was hospitalized several times. My father, feeling utterly humiliated in front of the relatives, became incredibly short-tempered. In a fit of rage one time, I impulsively grabbed a knife and went after Yang Wei. I didn't manage to hurt him, but I was arrested by the police and held in administrative detention for 15 days. Our family was torn apart and our home became a complete mess. Powerless to change my circumstances, I cried myself to sleep every night and sank into a deep depression. Less than a year after the divorce, I jumped to my death. Meanwhile, Yang Wei, the man who was supposedly infertile, married his pregnant mistress, and they welcomed a lovely son. My mother-in-law was overjoyed. The whole family built their happiness on my grave, living together in perfect, blissful harmony. I suppose their cruelty was so extreme that even the heavens couldn't bear to watch. That must be why I was given this chance to live again. So when I got the call, instead of rushing to the hospital right away, I gave the doctor my mother-in-law's phone number. Through tears, I said I was out of town and on my way to the hospital, and asked my mother-in-law to go sign the papers first. I won't pay a single cent for this, not now, not ever. After hanging up with the hospital, I immediately called my mother-in-law. She was crying and yelled at me, "Your husband is in the ER after a car accident, and you're still on a business trip. I'll go sign the forms so the doctors can operate. But you get back here now with the money. I don't have a penny on me." I could hear the nervousness in my mother-in-law's voice, followed by the sound of a table toppling over. She was worried about her son's life, of course, but she was also counting on me to be the sucker who foots the bill. In my past life, I was in such a rush to get to the hospital that I missed all these little details. "Mom, you pay for it first. I'll have Yang Wei pay you back later. All my bank cards are with him. I don't have any money on me," she cried, so I cried too. It's just crying. Who doesn't know how? If she thinks she's getting a dime out of me, she's got another think coming. I frantically searched the house, gathering every single bank card and stashing them all in my bag for safekeeping. Then, through tears, I went to find the police and traffic officers. I had them retrieve and copy the dashcam footage from Yang Wei's accident. After that, using my ID, I collected his smashed phone from the police and took it to a repair shop. Only then, with red-rimmed eyes, did I finally rush to the hospital. He had already been in surgery for over 3 hours by the time I arrived. I wasn't there, so my mother-in-law had already paid an initial round of fees, and he'd been moved to the ICU. She was still waiting by the door. The moment she saw me, she raised her hand and slapped me across the face. "Your own husband is in an accident, and you show up this late. What kind of wife are you? I'm telling you, if anything happens to Wei, you'll have me to answer to." After a lifetime of it, I've grown accustomed to her habit of casually pinning the blame on me. I didn't say a word, just let her rant. Arguing back would only rile her up more. Compared to the domestic violence in my past life, what was this one slap? Seeing I didn't argue back, my mother-in-law relaxed, her face stern. "You stay here and look after Wei. I'm going home. I just paid 10,000 yuan. That's enough for today. When Wei wakes up, remember to pay me back the 10,000, Mom." Wei is fighting for his life right now. How can you even think about him paying you back? My mind is a complete mess. Wei keeps his own money. I have no idea where it is. I admit I did it on purpose, putting on that loud, pitiful act so the doctors and nurses in the hospital would hear. So everyone would know it was his mother who was clinging to her money and unwilling to save him, not me. Gossip and online bullying. I had more than my fill of that in my last life. I don't want to go through that again in this one. Mom, for years, Wei's salary has basically all gone to you, while mine has covered all our household expenses. How about this? You give Wei's salary back to him to pay for his medical bills, and I'll use my income to take care of him. He's in such bad shape this time, he'll need proper nourishment and months of recovery. I'll personally look after him, his money for treatment, my money for living expenses. What do you think? Mom, relatives of patients had gathered at the hospital entrance. These folks love nothing more than a spectacle. Hearing my words, they all turned their eyes in unison toward my mother-in-law. Some even started muttering, in this day and age, a married son still has to hand over his paycheck. How on earth does the poor kid make ends meet? That poor girl, she gets married and ends up having to support her husband. No wonder young women these days don't want to get married. The mother-in-law was fuming. What do you all know? I raised my son from a boy to a man. What's the problem with him letting his own mother manage his salary now that he's grown? That's called being grateful. What are you all blabbering about? Grumbling under her breath. The mother-in-law said they were just jealous of her son's filial piety because they couldn't bear sons themselves. Then she stormed off with a face like thunder. She was absolutely certain that as long as I was there, I would definitely save her son. I didn't talk back, just stood there quietly. After all, he was in the ICU where family isn't allowed to stay, and they wouldn't declare him brain dead and a vegetable until tomorrow. The doctor offered a few words of comfort. Told me to go home and rest, and said they'd call the family if anything happened. I just needed to keep my phone on. As soon as I left the hospital, I took my husband's phone and started compiling all the call records between him and his mistress. As for the woman he was cheating with, I knew her too. She was his colleague, Su Fong. Judging from their explicit chat history, Su Fong was already a month pregnant at that point. I still have her on WeChat, in my past life. When Yang Wei was hospitalized, she even visited him on behalf of the company. Like a fool, I thought she was a reliable colleague. She still doesn't know that I'm aware they were having an affair, treating me like a sucker to save the father of her child. I quickly snapped a photo I took of Yang Wei in the ICU yesterday, tubes all over him, and posted it on my Moments with the caption, "Don't worry, I'll definitely convince Mom to use the money to save you. You will recover, hang in there." Honey, the post was visible only to Su Fong and my mother-in-law. I wanted them to see my determination to save Yang Wei, so I could keep up the act and not hand over the money. The next day, I went to the hospital and waited there early. I arrived before they even called me, because I knew this guy was about to be brain dead. Sure enough, not long after I arrived, the ICU doctor on duty rushed out. The situation was critical, requiring immediate surgery to save him, and even that might not work. The same spiel as in my last life. The doctor spoke with me privately, through tears. I said we had to try to save him no matter what. I begged for a few hours grace on the payment. My husband's money was with his mother, I explained, and I needed to discuss it with her. The moment her money arrived, we'd pay the emergency fees. I called my mother-in-law right in front of them, but she hung up on me immediately. Then I used the hospital's landline to call her again. She picked up instantly. And before I could even speak, her anxious voice came through the line. "Doctor, how is my son? He's going to be okay, right? Wei is already brain dead. The hospital needs the family's decision. If you want them to continue life support, you need to pay the fees immediately. Mom, please bring Yang Lin's money to the hospital to save him." I cut her off, sobbing uncontrollably. I was standing right at the nurses' station making this call, surrounded by doctors, nurses, and patients coming and going. A few of them had already discreetly started recording the scene on their phones. Hearing I was at the hospital, my mother-in-law on the other end of the line audibly sighed with relief. She knows me too well. She was certain I wouldn't abandon Yan Lin in a situation like this, and she was absolutely right. In my past life, I was completely trapped by this very dynamic, which ultimately drove me to a dead end, just as I thought. Xin, what are you implying? You're still young, and you already want to sponge off your parents. Yang Wei is your husband, not mine. It's you, his wife, who should be selling everything you own and borrowing money to save him, not me, an old woman with no ability to work. If you have no money, go borrow some. You're young. Are you really afraid you won't be able to pay it back? The moment I asked her to bring the money, she flew off the handle and started with that shrewish act. Even though I couldn't put the call on speaker, if this goes to court, all call recordings can be subpoenaed as evidence. I've taken enough hits in my past life, it's their turn now. Mom, are you saying you won't use the money Away left with you for his treatment? Where would an old woman like me get money? Let me tell you, I have no money to give, only my life. If anything happens to Away, I'll die with him. You can just wait to become a widow and mourn him, a widow, once he's dead. I'll find myself a whole string of boyfriends, I'll make sure his grave is greener than a meadow. Me, stay a widow, he can keep dreaming. Alright, I understand. Rubbing my reddened eyes, I kept the phone to my ear and, choking back sobs, cried out to the doctor, Doctor, my mother-in-law says we have no money left, so we've decided to stop treatment. We've agreed, please remove the breathing tube, to see him off properly. I requested permission from the doctor to personally go into the ICU and remove the breathing tube, to accompany him on his final journey. 2. Sign here. As the doctor slid the consent form toward me, I ended my phone call and quickly, decisively, signed my name, agreeing to withdraw life-sustaining treatment. I followed the doctor into the ICU and personally removed, one by one, the tubes connected to Yang Wei. I watched coldly as the numbers on Yang Wei's heart monitor dropped to 0. The sweet satisfaction of revenge washed over me, drowning out the fears of my past life. The monster was gone from this world for good. I knew my mother-in-law was rushing to the hospital, but it was too late. I even sent her a WeChat photo of Yang Wei with the tubes pulled out, along with the message, you wouldn't give up the money. You drove your own son to his death, are you happy now? You clung to his money and let him die, even as a ghost, he'll never forgive you. After sending the message, the whole process was complete. I slumped quietly in a chair outside the ICU, listening as the doctor pronounced Yang Wei dead, and then watched them cover him with a white sheet. Who told you to pull the plug? Just as they were wheeling the body to the morgue, the old woman arrived in a furious rush, unfortunately. She was a step too late. The moment she saw the body, the old woman's face went deathly pale. She was utterly stunned, her legs gave way, and she collapsed to the floor. She stood there, frozen in shock for a full 3 minutes, before finally throwing herself onto Yang Wei's lifeless body. She held him tight and broke down into heart-wrenching sobs. My son, how could you die? How could you leave your mother all alone in this world? After her crying fit, she suddenly bared her teeth and lunged at me to strike. I sidestepped, narrowly avoiding her. You Xian, you gave up on trying to save my son. That's murder. Now he's dead. You give me back my son. Give him back to me. My mother-in-law was throwing a fit, screaming and carrying on like a fishwife. Was it me who gave up? Mom, wasn't it you? I called you right in front of the doctors and nurses, with dozens of people watching. It was clearly you who abandoned him. You said you had no money and that was that if Yang Wei died, you'd die with him, and I could just be a widow. You're the one who had the money and refused to save him. You killed him and made me a widow. Why don't you go die with him then? Give me back my husband. Give me back my husband. What a joke. I made call after call and even sent her a WeChat message, all just waiting for this moment. So what if she throws a tantrum? If she's going to make a scene, then I'll make one too. Fight fire with fire. In my past life, I was just too concerned with saving face, which is why her whole family walked all over me, sobbing. I took out my phone and played the WeChat messages and call recording, where I complained to my mother-in-law about her not helping my husband, on speakerphone for all the gathered patients' families, doctors, and nurses to hear. Are you happy now, Mom? I cried my heart out, tears streaming down my face, and my mother-in-law's face turned even paler. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger, convinced that even if she didn't contribute a single penny, I'd still move heaven and earth to save Yang Wei. In our past life, it was her who kept pushing me to borrow money from my family, claiming she'd already tried all of Yang's relatives and no one would lend him a cent, even when we're fighting in this life. She never fails to remind me to scrape together every last penny and go begging to my family, for all her scheming and plotting. She never expected me to suddenly change the rules of the game. You. The mother-in-law was speechless for a long moment, unable to catch her breath. Mom, all the money Yang Wei earned over the years is with you. When he was in trouble, you wouldn't give a single cent. If Yang Wei knew, he'd haunt you from beyond the grave. You killed my husband, and I will never let this go for the rest of my life. After saying that, there was no time to waste. I still have a lot of matters to settle. For instance, there are still some assets between Yang Wei and me, the compensation from the insurance company, and even the money Yang Wei spent on that mistress. All of this needs to be calculated very clearly. I've already hired a lawyer. I'm walking out for good, and I certainly won't be dealing with Yang Wei's mess. Mourning a man like that would only make me sick. Once I got home, I had the renovation crew haul away all the old furniture and smash every bit of the fixed decor I couldn't take with me. The house isn't mine, but my parents paid for every single bit of the renovation. There's no way I'm letting someone else walk away with that. After I was done, I went back to my parents' place. My parents couldn't understand why I was acting this way. By all rights, with Yang Wei dead, I should be grieving. Instead, I was acting like nothing was wrong, even seeming happy. I couldn't explain any further. I just told them straight out that Yang Wei had been having an affair and got into the accident while buying a gift for his mistress. I left it at that, just asking them to trust me. I'm not some ungrateful person. When my parents heard about Yang Wei's affair, they were furious and wanted to demand justice, supporting me without a moment's hesitation, even in my past life. When the Yang family and our relatives drove me to despair, they never once uttered a harsh word to me. Yang Wei is just one of the culprits. There's also my mother-in-law and that homewrecker. I won't let a single one of them get away with it. The next day, my mother-in-law frantically called me over and over. Only after dozens of calls did I finally, and deliberately slowly, answer. You wretched woman, you Xin, are you dead? How dare you not answer your phone? Came my mother-in-law's shrill scream from the other end of the line. It's your son who's dead. The one you killed. Have you forgotten so soon? You, furious to the point of spitting blood, the mother-in-law demanded. Where are all the things from the house? Why is the place smashed up? Was it you? That was my home with Yang Wei. Now that you've killed Yang Wei, why on earth would I leave anything behind for a murderer like you? What I do with it is my own business. The house is in my name, which makes it my home. What's it to you? Get this straight. I was letting you live there out of charity, and you dare to wreck my house, declared Mother Wang, righteous indignation in her voice. I'm so angry I could laugh. It's true that my mother-in-law paid for the house in full, but at least half of that money came from Yang Wei's salary, which he handed over to her while we were dating. Of course, Yang Wei and I aren't married, so his money has nothing to do with me, but now, because she bought this house, my mother-in-law claims she's broke and refuses to pay the bride price. I'm my parents' only daughter, and they've always doted on me, not wanting to cause a fuss over the bride price. They not only agreed to forego it but also offered to pay for our renovations. Back then, my mother-in-law kept insisting that this apartment was meant for Yang Wei and me. She said her name was just on the deed for formality's sake, but the right to use it was entirely ours. We could live in it, rent it out, or even sell it as we pleased. I blame my own naivety back then, and my blind devotion to Yang Wei, for falling right into that wicked mother-son duo's trap. I took a deep breath, trying hard to keep my emotions in check. Getting worked up over people like them, it's just not worth the trouble. I don't even want the house. You can keep it and live in it until you die, I said coldly. Given my mother-in-law's temperament, there's no way I'd get even a sliver of this house, so I don't want to waste any more time fighting over it. The greatest tragedy in life is to cling to cold, lifeless assets with no one to care for you in your final years and no one to inherit them. Are you cursing me? My mother-in-law demanded, her voice trembling with emotion. I ignored her and continued, but my family paid for the renovation, and all the appliances and furniture were bought by us. Isn't it only right that I take them when I move out? You Xin, you heartless bitch, have you no conscience? I paid for the house you lived in, and now that my son is gone, you turn your back on me. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Not afraid at all, I said sarcastically. The lightning bolt wouldn't be for me. After all, someone's already gotten their comeuppance, haven't they? What did you say? Are you calling my son's death some kind of divine punishment? You should know better than anyone. You're the one who killed him. Let me make this clear to you. You Xin, my son is dead, and you won't get off easy either. The mother-in-law slammed down the phone. I looked at the phone and gave a cold smile. Bring it on. You're the one who should be scared. Don't go looking for trouble. That very afternoon, my dad and mom were watching TV in the living room when their expressions suddenly changed. They loved watching the local channel's mediation program, Sister Fan to the Rescue, which was all about domestic disputes and neighborhood gossip. Xin, come here quick. My mom called out to me, her voice tense. I was also in the living room, texting the insurance company on my phone to inquire about the compensation for Yang Wei's car accident. Since Yang Wei was primarily at fault, the compensation wouldn't be very high. Hearing my mom's voice, I looked up and immediately saw my mother-in-law on the TV screen. She is being interviewed by a reporter. A news channel in the lower left corner of the screen read, after her son's car accident, the daughter-in-law not only refused to authorize life-saving treatment but also trashed the family home. My son was in a car accident the day before yesterday. My daughter-in-law was afraid of the cost, so she directly refused any life-saving treatment, leaving my son to die in the hospital. Now, She's completely neglecting my son's funeral arrangements. I'm truly at my wit's end, which is why I've come to you for help." The elderly woman spoke through tears, presenting a pitiful figure that was genuinely heart-wrenching. "Is she not coming because she's racked with guilt and self-blame?" asked Sister Fan. "No," the mother-in-law said through tears. "The moment my son had his accident, she started demanding the house. I worked my whole life to buy that house outright for them with my life savings, my burial money. It's in my name. Because I refused to give it to her, she turned on me in an instant. She cleared out all the furniture and appliances and even vandalized the place." The more she spoke, the more distraught she became, breaking down into loud, heart-wrenching sobs. After offering a few words of comfort, Sister Fan asked, "What is it you'd like us to help you with today, ma'am?" "I want my daughter-in-law to handle my son's funeral arrangements and return the house to its original state, along with all the furniture and appliances." "All right, we'll contact your daughter-in-law first." As Sister Fan spoke, she picked up her phone, and moments later, mine started ringing. At the same time, my parents' phones also began to ring. My parents each answered the phone. "My mom, that's not how it happened. How could our Shin ever do such a thing? This is slander." "My dad. Don't you know what kind of person Shin is? You know perfectly well what you've done. If you keep stirring up trouble like this, don't blame me for not sparing the dead any courtesy. I'll make sure the whole country sees your disgrace." My dad was absolutely furious. It was only his personal restraint that kept him from publicly dragging a dead person's name through the mud in front of the media. It's clear that my mother-in-law's action has already had a social impact. It goes without saying how badly my reputation is ruined now. A wave of bitter irony washed over me. In my past life, because of the debt, the Yang family ruined my reputation and destroyed my family. Yang Wei is already dead in this life, and you still want to cyberbully me, trying to make me relive that nightmare. That's hilarious. Did she really think I came unprepared? It's about time she learned what it means to reap what you sow. So, after the production team called twice, I finally picked up. Hello, UXIN. This is the Anti-Fan to the Rescue program, your mother-in-law. I saw the live broadcast. I'm heading to Yang Wei's Memorial Hall right now. With that, I hung up the phone. If they want to stir up trouble, I can play that game too. I put down my phone, went to my room to get my things in order, and then got ready to head out. Don't worry, I can handle this. I reassured them. I'm coming with you. What if you get taken advantage of on your own? My dad just couldn't rest easy with me going it alone. The production crew will be there too. I won't get into any trouble. Just wait by the TV for the news. I really don't want them worrying about me like they did in my last life. I opened the front door. Several neighbors from next door were crowded in the doorway. Seeing me come out, they quickly scattered. As they were leaving, several neighbors from next door were blocking the way. When they saw me come out, they quickly scattered. As they shuffled off, a few gossipy old women muttered under their breath, "That's the wicked daughter-in-law, the one with no sense of propriety." I heard the family's supposed to be educated, so how did they end up raising such an ill-mannered girl? What do you call it? A wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm absolutely furious. My parents are just too reasonable, which is why those shameless Yangs have been walking all over them. I'm not wasting my time arguing about it now. The truth will come out soon enough anyway. I hailed a cab and arrived at my destination. The memorial hall was quite crowded. I guess word got out that a TV crew was coming. Besides family and friends, there were plenty of onlookers too. The moment I stepped inside, the whole room erupted. UXIN, you actually showed up. How dare you have the nerve to come? If it weren't for you, Yang Wei wouldn't be dead. If your mother-in-law hadn't tracked you down through the show's producers, would you really have been heartless enough to let Yang Wei leave this world without even seeing him off? After all Yang Wei and his mother have done for you, you've been married for over 3 years without a child, and he never held it against you. How dare you turn your back on them now? All of the Yang family relatives were hurling insults at me, talking over each other. To be honest, the Yangs weren't particularly close with their extended family. Yang's father died young, and his mother had a difficult, scheming personality. She never supported her own in-laws, and the whole Yang clan looked down on her for it. With the film crew present and out of respect for the deceased, everyone seemed eager to put on a show of sympathy and righteousness today. Some were even here hoping to see the mother-in-law get her comeuppance. After all, she never took care of her own in-laws, and now her daughter-in-law is giving her a taste of her own medicine. What goes around comes around. I glanced at Yang Wei's coffin and caught sight of his mistress, his colleague Su Fang. She shot me a venomous look before quickly lowering her head. No one knows about their illicit affair. She's attending the funeral merely as a colleague from the company. I can never forget how, in my past life, she stood in our home with such arrogance, calling me a barren hen who was just taking up space without producing anything. It's true that Yang Wei and I had no children after 3 years of marriage, but it wasn't my fault. It was due to Yang Wei's oligospermia, which made conception very difficult. The doctor suggested IVF, but the treatment is expensive and my mother-in-law was against it. On top of that, she'd heard some baseless rumor somewhere that children conceived through IVF aren't as good. Besides, the doctor only said it was very difficult, not impossible. So, my mother-in-law insisted we try to conceive naturally first and said we could reconsider when we're older. She did end up getting pregnant later, but it wasn't me, it was Su Feng. I still remember vividly how smug my mother-in-law acted after Su Feng got pregnant, saying there was nothing wrong with her son, it was just that some soil wasn't fertile. The more I think about it, the more bitterly ironic it feels. Slap. I slapped her right in front of everyone. Su Feng was stunned by my blow. Many of Yang Wei's colleagues, also present in the morning hall, were shocked by my actions. Why did you hit her? My mother-in-law demanded angrily, stepping in front of Su Feng to shield her. Yang Wei is a total mama's boy who tells his mother everything, so, his mother-in-law must have known for a long time that he was seeing another woman on the side. She even seemed to support it, saying it's normal for a man to have a mistress, and if he could even get her pregnant, that would be a real testament to his manhood. So what if she got hit? I said with cold sarcasm. Since when do you need to pick a special day to beat up the other woman? Stop talking nonsense. The mother-in-law was hysterical. My son is dead, and you still slander him like this. Have you no shame? Have you no conscience at all? Who says I'm slandering him? He was my husband. He loved me. It was that homewrecker who seduced him and got him killed. I shut the mother-in-law aside as she tried to shield Su Feng. My hand trembled as I pointed at Su Feng, my face a mask of anguish and fury. I knew all too well that publicly tearing into a dead man at his own funeral would do me no good. In Chinese culture, the principle of respect for the deceased holds an unshakable position, much like the saying filial piety is the foremost of all virtues. So, to turn the tables in my now notorious situation, I had to target the other woman. Not only that, I had to play the part of a naive, love-struck fool. That way, the audience would grow frustrated with my weakness. The more they pitted my lack of spine, the more they'd dig into our story. A man's affair is the kind of scandal that can't withstand scrutiny, especially when the other woman is pregnant. It's all because of this homewrecker. She seduced my husband. I checked the dashcam footage. She was pestering him for gifts. She threw a tantrum while he was driving, distracting him and causing the crash. You're the one who killed my husband. As I spoke, I began clawing at my husband Yang Wei's coffin, wailing hysterically, darling, how could I be so cursed, to be widowed so young? That homewrecker caused your car accident, and your mother hoarded your salary instead of saving you. When I see them, I want to flay their skin and drink their blood. Then, as if possessed, I pulled out my phone, thrust it toward the camera, and scrolled through the WeChat chat history between my mother-in-law and me for the lens to see. You didn't need to think twice to know the explosive impact these records would have. After showing the chats, I held up my phone to the camera again, playing the dashcam footage, and cried out in heart-wrenching agony, look, it was this mistress who killed him. She knew he was about to drive. Yet she picked a fight and caused the crash. You're nothing but a murderer. I'll take you to court and make you pay with your life. Of course, making her pay with her life was out of the question. It's absolutely gut-wrenching. My husband was so good to you. He was on his way to buy you a gift when the accident happened. Over the years, he must have given you so much money, and when he was dying, needing emergency care, you wouldn't spend a dime to save him. You just stood by and watched him die. You murderer. How dare you show your face at his funeral? What? Upon hearing that Yang Wei's accident was caused by an argument with Su Feng, the mother-in-law began trembling all over. She stared at her in disbelief, her eyes wide. Is what she's saying true? The evidence was irrefutable. I shut the dashcam footage right in front of the mother-in-law, forcing her to watch it over and over. It broke her. She lost control, her mind shattered. And she lunged forward to slap Su Feng across the face. You homewrecker, why did you have to kill my son? That slap of hers sent the live broadcast into total chaos. The relatives who were there for the drama finally got the spectacle they craved. They started berating the mother-in-law for failing to control her son, letting that homewrecker cause his death. The next day, #mother-in-law enabled son's affair. Mistress ends up killing him. #update, after my son's car accident. My daughter-in-law didn't try to save him and trashed the house. The follow-up, she encouraged my son to cheat. The mistress caused his death, was then invited to his funeral, and after trashing the house, my daughter-in-law refused to attend the funeral. This update completely blew up online. Netizens are all saying I did the right thing by smashing the place. Why bother saving such a scumbag? Yanking out the breathing tube and taking a photo for keepsakes would have been more satisfying. Some are also saying that anyone who criticizes the first wife must be the mistress. In the meantime, I have officially submitted all evidence to Su Fong, demanding she return all the marital assets that belong to me and Yang Wei. Since I repaired Yang Wei's phone, all the call logs, WeChat records, and various online banking transaction histories were laid bare. Leaving no room for doubt, Su Fong lost the lawsuit and was ordered to return the 320,000 yuan that was part of our marital joint property, but she had already spent all the money, so where would she get the funds to repay it? Just like in my past life, I hired a bunch of local thugs, armed with the court's judgment notice. They hounded her for the debt every single day, ever since finding out that Su Fong was responsible for the car accident that caused Yang Wei's death. My mother-in-law couldn't stand the sight of her. The only reason she tolerated Su Fong was because she was carrying Yang Wei's grandson. I didn't press her any further. Since she was desperate for a grandson, I let it slide for the time being. In fact, I even reached a private agreement with Su Fong. We agreed that once the baby was born, she would take the child to raise, and Su Fong would be free to marry someone else. That grandson was her only hope in life, so. Every time I went to demand the money back, my mother-in-law, a master of evasion and theatrics, would block my way. She'd throw herself on the ground, wailing and thrashing about. Even the local thugs wouldn't dare lay a finger on an old woman making such a scene. Collecting the debt became an uphill battle. Using my money to support your mistress and her child, what were you thinking? Since Su Fong refused to pay, I had no choice but to resort to drastic measures. I made 200 copies of the court summons, had someone investigate Su Fong's hometown, and hired 10 people to go there, making a racket with gongs and drums while handing out the notices. Su Fong's hometown is a rural village. Her parents are simple, honest farmers. People in these villages care deeply about saving face, so with all that noise and the distribution of flyers, the whole village found out, too ashamed to even speak of it. The elderly couple stormed straight into the apartment Yang Wei had rented for Su Fong, brandishing kitchen knives. Su Fong was so terrified that she immediately felt a sharp pain in her abdomen and began to bleed. By the time she was rushed to the hospital, the baby was lost, and she couldn't even save her uterus. The moment my mother-in-law saw that the only bloodline she had longed for was gone, she flew into a rage. Snatching the kitchen knife from Su Fong's parents, she lunged at me. I could have dodged it, but I didn't. The blade sliced cleanly across my shoulder, staining it crimson with blood. I was rushed into the emergency room for urgent treatment. For committing such a violent assault right in the hospital, the staff called the police, and my mother-in-law was arrested on the spot. In the end, she was charged with attempted murder, taken into custody, and sentenced to 30 years in prison. He's nearly 60 and got a 30-year sentence. His retirement years will be spent behind bars. Su Fong's parents scraped together every penny they could, borrowing from all their relatives to repay me the court-ordered sum, then took Su Fong back to their village. After my mother-in-law was arrested, I sold everything of value in the house and took the money home to be with my parents. In my past life, they worried themselves sick over me. In this one, I'm going to steer clear of all the deadbeats, stay close to my own parents, and cherish the simple joys of family. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. I served the spiked juice to my childhood friend. He drank it without batting an eye. His face was flushed, and his hands fumbled uncontrollably to undo the buttons of his shirt. He scooped me up by the waist and tossed me onto the bed. I struggled with all my might. Xinyu, what are you doing? Isn't this what you wanted? Don't you know what you put in there? As that handsome face drew closer and closer, I protested loudly. Bro, man, I put chili powder in it, not some kind of aphrodisiac. Xinyu has gone too far this time. He actually told my dad about my puppy love. Unbelievable. Since when can't a college student date? Well, apparently, a Zhao family college student can't. My entire reputation, Zhao Qing's good name, is ruined because of Xinyu. I had just finished dinner with my classmates when my dad called, on the other end of the line. The middle-aged man was sobbing as he spoke. Sweetheart, you absolutely must not fall in love. As he went on, there was a sound like a boiling kettle. Oh, it was just my dad crying even harder. I sighed helplessly. Dad, I didn't. He didn't believe me and kept on sobbing, tears and snot running down his face. Wah, Xiaoshan told me you've been getting awfully close with a boy from your class. Hearing my dad mention Xinyu, I couldn't help but clench my fists. I just knew it. Running into Xinyu at dinner, that look in his eyes meant nothing good was going to happen. My dad is such a crybaby. I'm actually a little curious how my mom ever fell for him back in the day. Jokes aside, I still have to gently coax my easily teary dad. Dad, I'm not seeing anyone. The sobbing hadn't stopped, only grown quieter, coming in ragged hitches. Really, I was certain, honestly. How could your precious daughter ever lie to you? Upon hearing my confirmation, the crying stopped immediately. He cleared his throat, sounding perfectly normal. That's good then, you go ahead with your work. Dad's fine. If you need money for living expenses, just let me know and I'll send it. My heart warmed at my dad's words. Even though he can be a bit of a drama king sometimes, he's still the dad who loves and cares for me the most. Just as expected, the transfer notification popped up on my phone, too. I remembered the root cause of this whole mess again. Grinding my teeth in frustration, that damn Shinyu. Just you wait. Shinyu knew he'd done something wrong. I didn't see him at school all the way until Friday. Every time he snitched, he'd get a guilty conscience and avoid me for days. Back then, I didn't understand why Shinyu sometimes looked at me with a hint of guilt. That was until my dad accidentally let something slip. Even now, thinking about those baseless reports Shinyu made in high school makes my blood boil. Oh, you're something else. Shinyu, after my last class on Friday, I asked my roommate to take my books back to the dorm for me. I went to wait for Shinyu outside his classroom. I remembered his class was advanced mathematics, in room 402 of building 7. I waited in the empty classroom next door. Just before class ended, I got up and went to stand by the classroom door to intercept him. In university lectures, it's rare for professors to run over time. The moment the bell rings, students start filing out of the classroom. Shinyu's roommates all knew me. When they saw me, they turned back and teased him. Shinyu, your childhood sweetheart is here to see you. Shinyu sauntered out of the classroom, his steps calm and unhurried. Seeing him look so utterly unbothered just made me want to pinch him, and I did just that. Giving him a good, hard pinch, Shinyu cried out in pain, Zhao Qing, are you trying to kill me? Seeing his pained expression had completely changed, I finally let go and gave a dismissive huff. I want hot pot. I commanded him with an air of righteous entitlement. Where shall we have it? He inquired patiently. My eyes darted around as I thought, we'll go to your apartment, and you'll make it for me. I ordered imperiously. It's easier to make a move at his apartment. Shinyu spoke in a gentle and placating tone. All right, Your Highness, we're out of groceries. How about you come shopping with me? Fine. Since he was being so reverent and polite, I decided to be merciful and agreed. 3. After finishing the grocery shopping, I went back to Shinyu's apartment with him. Naturally, I just sat on the sofa waiting to be served, leaving everything else to Shinyu. While Shinyu was busy washing the vegetables, I secretly took that package out of my pocket. Pour a glass of juice, then add the medicine to it. Use a straw to stir it around until it looks well mixed. I picked up the glass and held it to Shinyu's lips. Without changing his expression, he drank the entire glass down. I couldn't help but give him a thumbs up, seeing his completely unchanged expression. What a legend. In an instant, Shinyu put down the vegetables he was holding and couldn't resist unbuttoning his shirt. His face was flushed, and a light sweat had broken out on his forehead. I watched his expression shift rapidly, and I was utterly stunned. He scooped me up by the waist, flung open his bedroom door, and threw me onto the bed. I struggled with all my might. Shinyu, what are you doing? Isn't this what you wanted? What did you put in it? Don't tell me you don't know. As that handsome face drew closer and closer, I protested loudly. Bro, big bro, I only added chili powder to your food. Not an aphrodisiac. Shinyu's movements froze instantly, and he buried his head in my shoulder. His voice sounded faint and distant. If you don't believe me, then why is my whole body burning up right now? I gave him a pat. Of course you're feeling hot after eating chili powder. Go drink some water if you're hot. 4. Shinyu's dejected voice came through. Oh, then why did you put chili powder in my juice? I couldn't help but find it amusing. You don't know. I gave him a little shove, trying to get him off of me. He played dead, completely still, so I just sighed and stared at the ceiling. You really don't know? I don't know. Was it you who snitched to my dad? I snapped. Shinyu froze, then played dead again. Say something. What is it? His voice was still sullen. Aren't you a bit old to be acting so childish? Running to my dad to tattle. Shinyu didn't answer my question. Instead, he asked, do you like him? Who do I like? I have no idea what you're talking about. The one you had lunch with. Shinyu sounded annoyed. It was because of that person that Zhao Qing had stopped eating with him. That's why he resorted to this underhanded tactic. He was truly out of options and had to use the most despicable method, telling on someone. So that's how it was. Actually, the reason he came to me was, well, of course I'm not going to say, oh you mean him. I drew out the word, deliberately stringing Shinyu along. Suddenly, I felt a dampness on my shoulder. It couldn't be. I hurriedly pushed Xinyu away. I said in disbelief, "Xinyu, are you crying?" The corners of Xinyu's eyes were red, a single tear still clinging to his cheek. Hearing my words, he hastily pulled the covers over his head. A muffled, nasal voice came from under the covers. "No." I pulled the blanket back to peek at him. "Really, no," he snapped, frustrated. I reached out and touched the corner of his eye. It was damp. "Liar, get up. Aren't you thirsty after drinking all that chilly water? Don't worry about me. You like him, don't you? Why bother caring about me?" Xinyu's voice was muffled. 5. I let out a soft sigh. When did Xinyu become such a crybaby? Just like my dad, who says I like him. Xinyu threw off the covers and sat bolt upright, retorting, "You won't even eat with me anymore. And you still claim you don't have feelings for him." After saying that, he turned his head away, refusing to look at me. "So, eating with him means I like him. I eat with you all the time. Does that mean I'm in love with you?" A faint smile touched my lips. Xinyu's eyes reddened further at the corners upon hearing this. He muttered under his breath, "You could never like someone like me." "What?" I didn't quite catch it. He raised his voice a little more. "You don't like me?" I was stunned. "What makes you think that?" Xinyu grew even more upset. "I just know." Okay, his words made me doubt myself. Was my memory playing tricks on me? Since when did I not like Xinyu? Thinking of that incident, Xinyu could barely hold back his tears. He looked utterly fragile, making one want to bully him mercilessly. Seeing his reddened eyes and slightly disheveled hair, I sighed inwardly. The Xinyu of the past was never this prone to crying. 6. Xinyu and I grew up together, but it wasn't quite the classic childhood sweetheart story. He moved in next door when he was 9. Back then, Xinyu was different from the person he is now. Even as a kid, he put on this air of being mature beyond his years. While the rest of us were having a blast, he'd keep to himself on the sidelines, never quite fitting in. One day, while we were playing house, Xinyu sat quietly off to the side, doing his homework. I saw him and frowned slightly, remembering the teacher's advice about not leaving a good friend out. After a moment's thought, I came up with a brilliant idea. "Men, go and fetch me a husband for my mountain stronghold," I declared with a grand sweep of my arm. My underlings looked around in confusion. They remembered the script didn't have this part. How were they supposed to follow up? Watching my bewildered crew, I desperately shot them meaningful glances in Xinyu's direction. Finally, someone caught on and snapped out of it. "If the boss wants a husband for the stronghold, we should snatch the most handsome one for her. Only the best is worthy of our boss." The other underlings chimed in agreement. They caught on immediately. Someone pointed a finger in Xinyu's direction. "Him, he's the only one worthy of our brilliant and mighty boss." Then, the whole group hastily carried Xinyu away while he was doing his homework. Xinyu looked utterly bewildered. I nodded with satisfaction. Fitting in like this meant I wouldn't be left out. Take him to my place. Tonight, this boss is getting hitched. I grinned from ear to ear. My underlings whooped with joy. And a whole crowd of them carried Xinyu to my house in a grand procession. They even remembered to pack his homework when they took him away. Luckily, the parents weren't off work yet, so we didn't run into many familiar faces. Xinyu was carried to my place, looking utterly defeated, or more precisely, carried right onto my bed. 7. Everyone, withdraw. Your king is retiring to the bridal chamber. The friend playing the role of a henchman was still thoroughly amused, so engrossed in the fun of teasing the newlyweds that he was reluctant to leave. Finally, under the imposing authority of the king, he departed, looking back over his shoulder with every step. The henchman scene had come to an end. My show is just getting started. The mountain bandit king forces the young master of the manor to marry him. I took a pink silk scarf from my wardrobe, tied his wrists together, and finished it off with a bow. Xinyu wore a look of utter resignation. "Zhao Qing, when will this end?" I shot him a slightly annoyed look. "Don't address me by my given name so casually. You shall call me the Mountain King now." Xinyu glanced at the ceiling, exasperated. "Mountain King. When will this be over?" I gave a leering chuckle. "My dear, it will only be over when I, your king, am in a good mood." I was just messing with him. I finally caught Xinyu for some fun, and I wasn't about to let him leave until I'd had my fill. I looked him up and down, feeling like something was missing. "I've got it." I dashed over to the wardrobe, rummaged through it, scattering clothes everywhere, and spotted that red t-shirt. I picked it up. "You're the one." I dashed back to the bed and covered Xinyu's head with my red t-shirt. Before covering him, I saw an even deeper look of utter despair in his eyes. I grinned from ear to ear. Then, I took out the children's lipstick my mom bought me and smeared a thick ring around my lips. I frowned at the crooked lipstick in the mirror and was about to wipe it off to start over. Xinyu spoke up. "Zhao Qing, are you not ready yet?" Since my mountain stronghold husband was so impatient, of course I would oblige him. casually tossing the lipstick aside. I ran to the bedside. 8. I rubbed my hands together, putting on the same act I'd seen villains use in all those period dramas about abducting young women. My pretty little thing, here I come. I lifted the bridal veil with a lecherous grin on my face. I'm coming to satisfy you right now. Shinyu froze for a moment when he saw my smeared lipstick, then burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, Zhao Qing, look at you, you're like a little painted kitten. I've never seen Shinyu laugh this happily before. But the moment I realized he was laughing at me, I wasn't happy anymore. I shot Shinyu a slightly displeased look, pouting my lips. Don't you dare laugh at me, Your Majesty. He still couldn't help himself and kept on laughing. In a huff, I planted a big, smacking kiss on his cheek. Ha ha ha, that'll teach you to laugh at me. A perfect, bright lipstick mark was left on his face. I looked at the masterpiece I'd left on his face and nodded in satisfaction. Serves you right for laughing. I planted kisses all over his face, on his forehead, his right cheek, his chin, filling in every blank spot I could find. After the kissing spree, it was my turn to laugh. Ha ha ha, Shinyu, you're a little painted kitten now too. Shinyu was so flustered his ears turned bright red, stumbling over his words. You, Zhao Qing, you're impossible. I shook my head with smug satisfaction. I was just too good, Zhao Qing. You can't do this. I couldn't have cared less, and why not? He was just about to say something when, bang asterisk, my door flew open. 9. Zhao Qing. My mom's roar made me jump out of my skin. I ducked behind Shinyu. Seeing this only made my mom angrier. Only then did I notice my dad behind her, along with Shinyu's father and mother. In Mrs. Zhao's eyes, Shinyu was now a poor, pitiful soul who had just been forcibly kissed by her daughter. The rims of his eyes were a little red, though I knew it was from the force of my kiss. To Mrs. Zhao, he looked like nothing less than a victim of her own daughter's bullying. His face was covered in the evidence of my crime, not to mention his hands were still tied with my silk scarf. He was the very picture of a helpless victim. Mrs. Zhao struggled to contain her emotions as fury welled up inside her. Zhao Qing, I swear if I don't beat you so badly you'll take my last name, then I'm not your mother. I hid behind Shinyu, peeking my head out, but when I saw my mom's face burning with rage, I timidly ducked back. Honestly, I wanted to tell my mom that I already had her last name, but seeing the look on her face, I didn't dare say a word. My mom wanted to step forward, first to untie the ribbon from Shinyu's wrist, and then deal with me. She was pulled back by Mrs. Shen, who was smiling warmly behind her. My mother looked at Mrs. Shen with an apologetic expression. I'm so sorry, Yen. My daughter is really too mischievous. As she spoke, my mother shot me a glare, already planning to give me a good spanking once everyone had left. Mrs. Shen had just returned from taking photos of the newborn, camera still in hand. Her voice was gentle, not angry at all. She picked up the camera and started snapping pictures of Shinyu and me. This is lovely, she said. Shinyu has always been so serious, even as a child. Sometimes I'd try to tease him and he wouldn't even react. It's rare to see him like this. I have your daughter to thank for that. As she spoke, Mrs. Shen never stopped taking pictures. Shinyu untied the ribbon himself at that moment, walked over to his mother, and said with a look of resignation, Mom, stop taking pictures. Mrs. Shen didn't listen. The corners of her lips turned up in a smile as she pressed the shutter once more. She knew perfectly well that if Shinyu didn't want to be held, he would have broken free long ago. Honestly, who on earth does he take after with that stubborn look? Mrs. Shen secretly pinched the man beside her, who felt he was being blamed for no reason at all. He gave her a look that said, Honey, it's really not my fault. Blame the strong genes. There's nothing I can do about it. After patting Shinyu, she turned and waved to me. Zhao Qing, come over here, quick. I looked at my mom, then at Auntie Zhao. I didn't dare move. I didn't dare move a muscle. 10. My mom shot me a sidelong glance. I'll deal with you later. Get over here. Okay. I dashed over with a patter of footsteps. Aunt Shen said gently, Come on, Zhao Qing, stand here with AU for a keepsake photo. And so, on that day, Shinyu and I had several meaningful photos taken. Of course, after Aunt Shen and the others left, I got a good scolding. My mom would lecture me relentlessly, and my dad, powerless to stop her, could only watch with tears in his eyes. From that day on, Shinyu and I grew closer and closer, becoming inseparable. But by the time we got to high school, that closeness had started to fade. Because Shinyu, he, started snitching on me. By the time we started high school, all my close friends had scattered to different schools. I glanced at Shinyu, who was still faithfully by my side, and felt a wave of relief. At least my ride-or-die partner was still here. High school is a time of rapid change, and Shinyu was blossoming into someone truly striking. He began drawing more and more attention. As I struggled to suppress my growing irritation, it finally dawned on me. I genuinely wanted him to be my person, my one and only, ahem, so that means I have feelings for him. I like him a lot. I realized my feelings for Shinyu when I first started high school. I treated him even better than before, so when Shinyu said I couldn't possibly like him, I was completely baffled and had no idea what he was talking about. I gently wiped the tear from the corner of Shinyu's eye with my thumb and asked softly, "When did I ever say I didn't like you?" 11. Shinyu still refused to look at me. The redness at the corner of his eye betrayed his current fragility. It was a long moment before he finally spoke. It was the day of the sports meet in our first year of high school. Shinyu tilted his head back at a 45-degree angle, fighting to keep the tears from falling. Hearing Shinyu say that, it all came back to me. That day is etched in my memory, because I was planning to confess my feelings in secret. I wanted to be trendy for once, to do it casually and unexpectedly, just like in the novels. I'm not entirely sure about Shinyu's feelings, and I'm afraid that confessing might ruin our friendship. I've come up with a confession strategy that lets me test the waters while keeping a safe retreat. At the very end of the sports festival, I'll play it super casual, accidentally saying I like Shinyu in the classroom. If his expression changes when he hears it, I'll just play it off as a joke and quietly slip back into the friend zone. After making absolutely sure no one else would come to the classroom, I had someone call Shinyu back. Before he arrived, I rehearsed it countless times. "Shinyu, I like you. Do you like me? Shinyu, I like you. Do you like me?" After saying it for so long, I finally tripped over my own words. "Shinyu doesn't like me. I don't like Shinyu. Ugh, no, 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 that's wrong. I do like Shinyu." Standing outside the door, Shinyu felt his world collapse before he could even hear the rest. His mind was consumed by the thought, "She doesn't like me," drowning out everything that followed. He even forgot to ask Xiaoqing why she had come looking for him. He was left alone and forlorn in the corridor, bearing the pain and solitude. He didn't dare to wander off. Despite his heartache, he was afraid Xiaoqing wouldn't be able to find him if she came looking, so he just stood there alone, enduring the biting wind for what felt like an eternity, finding fault with everything around him. Damn those roses, blooming so brilliantly for no reason. The flower of his love had withered before it ever had a chance to blossom. He thought to himself with bitter irony, at least he hadn't confessed his feelings. Being rejected would have been nothing but a humiliating spectacle. After much deliberation, Shinyu concluded that he was doomed to pine for Xiaoqing, and Xiaoqing alone. From now on, he simply couldn't stand the sight of Xiaoqing being with someone else. Shinyu swore to himself that from this day forward, he would be Neo-Huru Shinyu, and he was going to embrace the darkness completely. 12. I practiced in the classroom until my mouth was parched, but Shinyu still hadn't arrived. I started to wonder, had something happened to him? As I stepped out of the classroom, I saw Shinyu leaning against the railing outside the next class, gazing up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. The urge to confess vanished the moment I laid eyes on him. I was too afraid. I was no longer the Xiaoqing from childhood who could boldly drag Shinyu home to be my mountain bandit groom without a second thought. Sometimes I even envy my past self, carefree and fearless, instead of being like this, where the affection weighing on my heart is something I don't dare to voice at all. I'm afraid he doesn't like me, afraid that after confessing, we couldn't even remain friends. Liking someone is a cautious, tentative thing. I backed down. "Shinyu," I called out to stop him. Wanting to ask why he hadn't come to the classroom, I wondered if he had even noticed my perfectly laid plan. I was too embarrassed to ask directly, so I had to beat around the bush. "Did you just come to the classroom?" My heart was in my throat, afraid he might hear, yet equally afraid he might not. As I awaited his verdict, a flicker of disappointment passed through Shinyu's eyes as he took in every nuance of my expression. "What's the matter?" "Afraid he might overhear you saying you don't like him later." Shinyu shook his head. I let out a long sigh. Forget it, this kind of flawless, perfectly scripted confession just isn't my style. Better to take the slow and steady approach, like boiling a frog. Little did I know that boiling would last all the way until university. 13. "So it's because of that. That's why you think I don't like you." I stared at Shinyu, utterly dumbfounded. He protested. "I heard you say with your own mouth that you don't like me." And to think, when he heard Xiaoqing was waiting for him in the classroom, he ran like the wind. My face was a picture of utter disbelief as I asked weakly, "Don't tell me that's the only part you heard." Shinyu looked a bit guilty, then lifted his head with a haughty air. "Whether I heard the rest or not is irrelevant. I heard the most crucial part, and that's what matters." As he spoke, His face was once again etched with boundless sorrow and dejection. "Oh, so you're saying you didn't hear me say I like you at all," I murmured softly. Hearing this, Shinyu's eyes lit up. He finally turned his face towards me, looking me straight in the eye, and said, "Say that again." His gaze was filled with hopeful anticipation. "I am not saying it again." Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I never thought something as ridiculous as a misheard confession from a novel would happen to me. "Fine. You didn't hear it. Forget it then." He rushed over, grabbing my hand and shaking it excitedly. "No, I heard you. You said you like me." After Shinyu said that, he started grinning like an idiot. "So this is why you've been secretly snitching to my dad, isn't it?" I said in a low, resentful tone. Shinyu froze, looking at me cautiously, not daring to move a muscle. Seeing him like that, I knew I had guessed right. I placed my hand on his shoulder and whispered in his ear. "Don't tell me you turned to the dark side after that day, and that's why you started reporting to my dad." Shinyu froze even more, trembling uncontrollably. He simply couldn't stand the terrifying atmosphere any longer and cried out, "I was wrong." He then dashed to the study, swiftly yanked the keyboard free, brought it back to the room, placed it on the floor, and decisively knelt down on it. "I'm really sorry." I raised an eyebrow at the sight of him decisively dropping to his knees. His will to survive is pretty strong. 14. "Then tell me, what exactly did you do wrong?" Shinyu kept his head down, not daring to meet my eyes, and began to speak quietly. "I shouldn't have volunteered to keep an eye on the boys around you at school when Uncle mentioned we should be cautious." Shinyu stole a glance at my expression, and seeing it hadn't changed, he cautiously continued, "In our first year of high school, when someone gave you a love letter, I was the one who told Uncle. I remember this incident. It was around this time my dad started getting all weepy and emotional at the slightest hint of me having a puppy love. Once she starts crying, I can never calm her down. My mom won't help either. She just tells me to figure it out myself." "Go on." "It was also me who secretly told your uncle about someone sending you gifts and pursuing you." I found it somewhat amusing to watch Shinyu's expression as he spoke, carefully gauging my reaction. So now he's afraid I'll get angry. Where was this consideration earlier? I wouldn't have known Shinyu was behind it all if my dad hadn't let it slip that one time. I was already keeping my distance from the boys in my class, but after that, I kept them even further at arm's length. I was terrified of coming home to see my dad, a tough guy, in tears. Then it hit me, something wasn't right. How did my dad always know exactly what was going on at my school? Then one time when he was drunk, I tried to coax it out of my dad. "Dad, how are you so brilliant and all-knowing? You always find out about everything that happens at school." My dad puffed up with pride at that. "Your old man here can see the future." "Daddy," I wheedled, "whose dad is the most dashing, handsome, and charming man in the world?" "Of course, it's my universe-conquering, super handsome dad. Just tell me, please," flattered and floating on air from my praise. My dad let it slip. Well, it was Shen. By the time my dad realized what he had said, it was too late to take it back, and he looked thoroughly embarrassed. "Sweetheart, I didn't say a thing." I shot him a glance and said nothing more. I looked at the man kneeling bolt upright before me. I had to admit, a man with good looks has a certain appeal in everything he does. Kneeling like that just makes you want to be ravished. If my dad knew he was so busy guarding against outsiders, only to be betrayed by someone close, I'd almost find it laughable. I really don't understand why my dad trusts Shinyu so completely. TSK, the rabbit's about to nibble the grass right by its own burrow. 15. Seeing Shinyu looking as pitiful as a wronged young bride, and having knelt for so long, my anger finally subsided. "All right," I said, "you can get up now." Shinyu didn't move at first. He stole a glance at my expression, and only after confirming I was truly no longer angry did he slowly rise to his feet. Once standing, he quietly rubbed his knees. "So, you like me, and I like you. Would you be with me?" Shinyu looked at me with eager, pleading eyes, waiting for my answer. I shot him an annoyed glance. "Fine, I'm not the type to drag things out. When two people are mutually attracted, of course I'd want to be with the person I like sooner rather than later. I have my own selfish reasons too." Shinyu's mood instantly brightened, and the pitiful, heartbroken puppy look from moments ago vanished completely. If he had a tail, it would be wagging nonstop right now. "Then, if anyone tries to ask me out, I can just say I have a girlfriend." I narrowed my eyes, giving Shinyu a scrutinizing look. "Are you hiding something else from me?" Shinyu's hand trembled slightly, and he looked as if he were facing his doom. "A girl has been pursuing me recently." I couldn't help but laugh. "Seriously, I get reported for just having a meal with someone, but he's over here with someone actually chasing after him." Only after Shinyu repeatedly assured me he'd never spoken to her did I reluctantly forgive him. Soon after, I met the girl Shinyu mentioned, the one who was pursuing him, 16, on Wednesday after school. Shinyu was waiting for me at the door of my classroom. He said from now on, he wanted to have every meal with me. He wouldn't give anyone else a chance, not with me, and not with him. I found a quiet corner in the cafeteria and sat down. Shinyu went to get our food, and I just waited for him. It wasn't long before Shinyu came back with 2 trays of food. He sat down beside me, meticulously wiped the chopsticks, and then handed them to me. A voice, brimming with pleasant surprise, called out, "Senior." I looked up and saw a sweet-looking girl gazing at Shinyu with delight in her eyes. Shinyu quickly leaned closer to me and declared with firm conviction, "I have a girlfriend." She looked at us in disbelief, a hint of hurt in her eyes, before silently accepting the fact that Shinyu had a girlfriend. "All right," she said, leaving with a touch of reluctance, but she left all the same. I turned to Shinyu. "It's that face of yours causing trouble again," he declared his sincerity, raising his slender, pale fingers as if taking an oath. "I've only ever liked you since we were kids, don't you remember? I'm still your captured groom." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He grew a bit flustered. "There's proof at home," he said. "My mom took pictures." Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but give him a kiss on the cheek. He froze. I let out a soft laugh. "Haha, Shinyu, you're such a dummy." He looked at me with pleading eyes. "Just one more kiss, let's eat, or the food will get cold." "Oh, okay." 17. I hadn't expected there would be a follow-up to this classmates situation. Shinyu's roommates treated everyone to KTV, and he brought me along. Only after I arrived did I realize that the others who had girlfriends were in long-distance relationships and couldn't make it. The rest were just single and unattached. After spending a little while in the room, I told Shinyu I needed to use the restroom. He wanted to come with me, but I stopped him. I never expected to run into an acquaintance just stepping out of the restroom. It was that classmate who's been pursuing Shinyu. She looked at me, her eyes lighting up. She had actually been looking for this senior, and couldn't believe her luck at running into her like this. She couldn't help herself and finally spoke up. "Senior, I think Shinyu might not be a good guy." I was confused. She explained, "I just heard him at the door." His tone was so casual and dismissive, just like a total player. That's exactly how he was talking. The junior then mimicked Shinyu's tone, saying, "Chasing a girlfriend. Piece of cake, it's a sure thing." The junior's expression was a mix of emotions, mostly relief, with a hint of disgust. "He's clearly a player," she said. "I don't know what I ever saw in him." She turned to me and added, "Senior, I really hope you'll think this through carefully. Don't let him fool you." Her eyes were full of pity. I can't shake the feeling that this scene is strangely familiar. "Don't tell me that's the only part you heard," she nodded, her face a picture of confusion. Wasn't that one line enough? It was classic player talk. I motioned for her to follow me to the door of the room to listen to the conversation inside. 18. During the chat, everyone turned off the music, so all their noisy chatter was clearly audible from outside. Someone spoke up. "Shinyu's the man. Using our dorms, How to Win a Girlfriend playbook." He actually succeeded. With everyone's collective wisdom, he finally saw the light. "All right, listen up. Today, your man Old Wong is going to give you single guys a masterclass with your girlfriend. Be sincere. If you're in the wrong, just own up to it. No toxic masculinity here. If you need to kneel on a keyboard, you kneel on a keyboard. If you need to kneel on a durian, you kneel on a durian." The others chuckled. "Looks like Brother Wong here speaks from experience. Come on. Let's hear a few words of wisdom from Shinyu, our man who successfully landed himself a partner." "Get lost," he teased, but he said it anyway. "My girlfriend and I grew up together, childhood sweethearts. It's not the same as you guys, but I totally agree with the kneel when you're wrong rule." I looked at my utterly confused junior. "Next time, junior, try to get the whole story." My junior then relaxed and said, "Senior, I'm actually quite shallow. I just like his face, of course. I have my principles. Since he's taken, I won't like him anymore. I wish you both happiness." With that, she waved and left. Watching her walk away, I smiled. She's actually pretty cute. After everything was over, Shinyu and I went back to his apartment. He couldn't help but stay close to me the whole way. 19. His eyes lit up a little. "Baby, I want to kiss you." His kiss found my lips, light and tender at first. Then he deepened it slowly, conquering until I was breathless before he finally pulled away. I lay against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, fast, just as frantic as my own. In the pitch-black night, it felt as if only the sound of our 2 heartbeats remained. Once I'd rested enough, I jumped onto Shinyu's back, and he quickly caught me. Then he carried me on his back and slowly made his way home. As we neared the apartment building, he finally spoke softly. "It wouldn't be so bad to keep walking like this. Then you have to keep carrying me. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever put you down. Shinyu, a faint, eerie voice called out from beside us, startling us both. Good thing Shinyu was holding me tight while carrying me on his back, or I would have fallen. I looked at the tall figure standing nearby. It was none other than my dear old father. My father's gaze towards Shinyu was filled with profound disappointment, as if saying, I trusted you so much. How could you betray that trust? I got down from Shinyu's back. Dad, what are you doing here? If I hadn't come, I wouldn't have found out some pig has been rooting up my cabbage. I was guarding against everything. But I never expected the thief to come from within. Shinyu was feeling a bit guilty at first, but his eyes lit up when he heard my dad say it's hard to guard against a thief in the family. He then called out loudly, Dad, he's already being treated like one of the family. Well, I'll be damned, Shinyu. I haven't even agreed yet, and you're already calling me dad, my dad said, unable to hold back his tears. The thought of his daughter getting married and leaving him one day just breaks his heart. Hold it in, came my mom's voice. Oh, my dad choked back the tears. Uncle Shin and Aunt Shin came over as well. Aunt Shin's eyes shone with unconcealable delight as she looked at me. Our group went upstairs, and my mom and Aunt Shin started talking about Shinyu and me. Before long, the two of them were already discussing our wedding. My father stood to the side, quietly shedding tears. We slipped away to the room while they weren't looking. Looks like my mom really likes you. I gave Shinyu's hand a squeeze. So, can we get married right after graduation? Shinyu beamed. That depends on your performance. I replied with a smile that reached my eyes. Got it. I'll do my absolute best and work hard to earn my official certification soon. A soft voice whispered by my ear, settling deep in my heart. Zhao Qing, I like you so much. I love you. I turned my head to look at his handsome face, a smile tugging at the corner of my lips. I really like you too. All the people I love are right here, and life is peaceful and good. It's wonderful. 20. Shinyu. Side story. When I was 9, I moved with my parents. I met a new neighbor. Her name was Zhao Qing. I thought a change of scenery would be my chance to act mature and composed. But she completely ruined that plan, worried I'd be left out. She dragged me into playing house. I was a bit reluctant. To be honest, I'd rather have been doing my homework, but I never expected her to be so bold. She declared I was to be her bandit laird's husband. I was a bit embarrassed, but I didn't refuse. I teased her about her smudged lipstick. She told me to stop laughing, and then she actually leaned in and kissed me. I was completely stunned. I'd never met a girl like that. I was just about to say that since she kissed me, she had to take responsibility, when my parents and her parents all came back. For a moment, I was speechless. My mom just grabbed the camera and started snapping away. Those photos are still in perfect condition to this day. At our wedding, both sets of parents agreed to put them up on the big screen. We even had a blown-up version of our marriage certificate photo taken, styled like a bandit queen capturing her groom. As for that embarrassing dark phase I went through in high school, let's not go there for now. Later, I asked my wife why she never confronted me in high school after finding out I was the one who told on her. She gave me a casual glance and said it was because she really liked me. Of course, if it had been anyone else, do you think she would have let it slide? I'm feeling all warm and fuzzy again. I just knew she loved me, even after years of marriage. I still felt uneasy about her having dinner with a certain male classmate. It wasn't until one night, after I had really gone out of my way to please my wife, that she reluctantly told me the truth. That classmate was trying to pursue her roommate and had asked for her help, swearing her to secrecy. I feel better instantly. Alright, I'm off to cuddle with my wife and sleep. Good night. End of text. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe.